Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Доводи всяке озброєння, різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Lviv Spring Army sends its regards.
О, бля! Игорь!
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 391 of the news, and it's good to see you all once again in the chat.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and there is a massive amount of news tonight. The past 48 hours have probably been the most active 48 hours we've seen over the past half year of this war. Things have been happening both inside of Ukraine and outside of Ukraine that are both monumental and also somewhat concerning in some regards. And so, of course, the thumbnail and title for tonight says that there were some huge explosions that crippled Russia, and we're actually going to be starting right there tonight. We're going to be starting off with the thumbnail and the title being the first bits of news that we cover tonight. Of course, many of y'all know that we have laid out on our map, link in the description below to find that map. You can click on it yourself and take a look around the railroad lines and the railroad hubs of the areas of southern Ukraine and also Crimea. The ones in Crimea are the ones we want to talk about because there are two choke points moving in and out of Crimea. There is Dzankhoi, which is the largest of the railheads, more to the eastern side of the peninsula. This is where we assume the large portion of Russian supplies by rail is traveling through right now, considering that the railway bridge, as we know it right now, is down and out of action for repairs. Both railway segments, while only one has been removed from what we understand, the other railway segment is also being used by repair crews to work on the other removed span. So the entire bridge is out, and so all railroad supplies, which is the way the Russian army functions, is being transported most likely from the direction of Melitopol and on into the area of Crimea itself. On Monday night, in the middle of the darkness, the pitch black that covers the world at night, we heard the whirring of a drone's engine. And before we get to that, I want to make sure to cover this one more time because this is incredibly important to note. The Dzankhoi is pretty much the artery for supplies that enter Crimea. There really right now is no other way to get supplies in at an efficient speed and rate except for directly in through Dzankhoi. From Dzankhoi, supplies can then be moved to Simferopol, I believe is how it's pronounced, in the center of Crimea, on down to Sevastopol in the Black Sea Fleet, inside of Sevastopol city, all the way over to Kerch itself as well, and even as far as the Yevpatoria airfields that are in the area of Evpatoria. I'm sorry, everyone. Those are really hard names to pronounce, and I'm not really good with pronouncing anything for that matter. But I have to make that incredibly well-known and heavily pronounced, the importance of the Dzankhoi as a supply hub. In the middle of the night, on Monday night, we heard the whirring of drone engines flying into the area of Dzankhoi, and here's the first clip. We hear an explosion in the distance. We see the cameraman looking around. We, of course, can't see anything. No anti-aircraft fire to speak of, for that matter, as well, as these explosions blow up in the distance somewhere near the rail yard in the city. In the next clip, we also hear the drones, well, actually, we see the explosions once more, closer up from a different camera angle from someone else who was also filming the drone strikes. Right there, we can see the flash of one of the explosions. We can hear the whir of the drone's engine. And we can hear another one coming in. We can still hear them flying in. We can hear some small arms fire being fired up into the sky. This is not large AA. It sounds like infantrymen firing their rifles into the air. And with that, that's the end of the clip. But as that clip ended,
sounds a lot of like a Shahed drone.
It does, doesn't it? And we're about to be getting to that in a second, Matthew. Very observant of you. But moving on into our next clip, we then saw the damage, at least a small amount of the damage, that had been caused by the unmarked drones in Dzankhoi. Right here we can see that one of the rail yard buildings has been blown up, debris all over the place, and it appears that these may have been somewhat sizable explosions. And moving on into our last bit, we actually got some pictures. Well, wait a minute, hang on, sorry, actually that's today's news. The pictures came out of those. We're going to check out the next video, which also shows the depot fire from a distance. Here we can see him looking into the distance here. This is in the direction of the rail yard. And we can see the explosion of one of the drones on the rail depot which was actually quite significant and fairly large. We can now see the cameraman running down the street, and as the plume of smoke starts billowing into the sky near the rail yard.
На железку, да, упал?
We now hear the alarms and sirens going off as the dog starts running towards the man at the end of the video, and now we're on into today, because today, pictures came out of some of the fragments and remnants of the drones that conducted this strike, and they are fairly interesting because we have never seen a tail section on a drone like this before. This appears to be the only part of the tail section, and what's even more interesting about it is that the rear part of the fuselage of this drone is incredibly narrow. We have no idea whatsoever at this moment what kind of drone this is. We've never seen pictures of one that resembles this near the tail section. If anyone has any idea what this is, that information is needed. I've been looking around trying to figure out what in the world these drones are, what their design is, where they may have come from. Nothing is known about these drones. And moving into the next picture, we can see something a little interesting on the tail section. It's a troll face. And then this begs the question, Matthew. This is where, and you can see it right there actually, this is where the roundel would usually be on a Ukrainian drone, yet there is no roundel, there's just a meme. So, are these, like, did the Ukrainians fly these, or was this just a group of civilians inside of Ukraine, you know, kind of like the Avdiivka, that just decided they wanted to blow up the most important rail hub in Crimea, and then flew a bunch of their own homemade drones down there? We have no idea.
I wonder. It could have been, but it seems like they might be trying to replicate the design of the Shahed, maybe.
Maybe. Because over here, another interesting thing you can note in this picture that you can't see in any other, the rear, I guess you could say, the rear elevator section of this boom appears to be actually kind of large. It may appear that it was actually a two-strut rear fuselage section, and that's why this one side was so narrow and small, but we still have no idea. We've never seen a picture, and I've got to say this a lot, we've never seen an actual picture of this drone here, at least part of the drone that we're seeing, ever in use in Ukraine. It's also completely unmarked. We've never seen this thing used by Ukraine. It doesn't look like it's an indigenous Ukrainian design, so we're trying to figure out what in the world this drone design is. I haven't seen anyone put it in the live chat yet, but it is absolutely hilarious to see that they somehow were able to fly multiples of these things into the area of the rail yard and heavily damage it. As we know right now, the rail yard may have taken enough damage to knock it out for a short while, most likely just a few days, but those few days are incredibly massive in their scale. Dzankhoi, it was once again pretty much the only area inside of the northern Crimean peninsula where any supplies can come in at this point. The Kerch Bridge is down for repairs, so no supplies can cross the bridge. There is no way for supplies to enter by sea, because that's incredibly slow and cumbersome, and they'll have to cross the Kerch Strait, and that's a whole deal. So really the only way they can enter is through Dzankhoi, and the rail yard's been hit and knocked out. That means for the next few days, Crimea is practically out of supplies, and if they're getting any, it's going to be a very small trickle until these, I guess you could say, this damage to the rail yard has been repaired. And it appears that Terry Richardson may have actually given us an answer to what this drone is. He says it's a Mugen-5. So let's see, let's take a look.
That'd be the same type of drone that I believe Russia was using on Ukraine a few days ago.
That does look a lot like it, doesn't it? Let's go back and look at this picture. I don't know, because it has this little extra piece out here on the elevator that the Mugen-5 does not have from what we can tell, or that could be... Wait a minute, no. He is correct, because that's all part of the rudder, actually. And the rudder is kind of shaped like a shark tooth, I guess is the best way to say it. And when we look at this one, it's shaped like a shark tooth. So it could have been entirely possible that this is a Chinese-made drone. You can buy these from China.
Yeah, that's what Russia's been doing too.
Interesting. Well, it's good to know that the Chinese are giving the Ukrainians possible military aid as well, because it looks like the Ukrainians use these things to blow up one of the most important rail yards in Crimea right now. So good on them. Very interesting to know, and also thank you so much for sharing that with us, because it is, in fact, a Mugen or Mugen, I don't know what the actual pronunciation is, 5. And how much do these things cost? $13,000 actually, so they're fairly expensive, and they also look like they fly like a conventional quadcopter.
Wow, it's like a VTOL thing.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. Anyways, we're now going to be moving on from this insane news that will probably be very devastating to at least the Russian forces in Crimea for a short while until they can get supplies again. The Russians probably do have a large enough supply stockpile in Crimea that they can function for a few days without additional inputs of supply, but at the same time, one has to remember this is a very precarious and very dangerous situation that Russian forces find themselves in here in Crimea. There's no real way to supply them efficiently at this point with that railhead down, and if the Ukrainians were able to find a way to keep Dzankhoi practically out of action, there is no way to supply Crimea unless if it's by ship in the Kerch Strait, and then that is so inefficient that the amount of forces that the Russians could support inside of Crimea will be incredibly low compared to the number that we believe they are currently supporting inside of the peninsula. With that, we're now going to be moving out of Crimea and on into massive amounts of news that is absolutely insane. In fact, depending on how y'all look at nuclear weapons, y'all may find this next bit of news more shocking than the Crimean news. Outside of Kaliningrad, which is an area that Russia controls, the Russians actually got control of this small area at the end of the Second World War, as this is the northern part of Eastern Prussia, which was actually owned by the Germans at the onset of the Second World War, then relinquished to the Soviet Union afterwards, and still to this day remains a part of the Russian Federation. Just in case if any of y'all wondered, why the hell does Russia control this piece? That's why. Nonetheless, the Russians are incredibly adamant on defending this piece of land, although it really holds no economic value to them. The only value it really holds is strategic value. A B-52H of the United States Air Force was spotted flying off its coast today by Russian Air Force radars, and Su-27s were scrambled to intercept this B-52 on its path. According to the information we have, it was flying close to Russian airspace near Kaliningrad, but in international airspace just miles away, but it was close enough to warrant the Russians to scramble some jets. The Su-27s then found the B-52 in mid-flight, and here's the video that one of these aircraft took of the B-52. You see it right here? There's the B-52. The Su-27 escorted it until it was a good distance away from Kaliningrad's airspace, and then the most interesting thing happened. The B-52 continued on its journey north to Estonia. The B-52, from what we understand, we don't really have a good answer to this because the B-52 is nuclear capable. It can carry nuclear missiles or nuclear bombs. This B-52 continued on into Estonia, and according to flight radar, made several rounds on the Estonian border just 50 miles away from St. Petersburg. We can see the tracks that it took right there on the flight radar. Now, this is something incredibly interesting. We don't really see a lot of public information listed about the flight patterns or the training routines conducted by the U.S. Air Force's B-52s. So we do not really know, much like aircraft interception, I guess you could say normal bomber interceptions near Russia and Alaska and the United States, we don't really know if this kind of training routine is normal to fly a B-52 over Estonia, because this B-52, if it was equipped with nuclear weapons, could have started firing off nuclear missiles towards the area of St. Petersburg from this distance. So fairly interesting to see, and it looks like the United States isn't taking the drone incident laying down. As you all know, last week the Russians did down a MQ-9 Predator drone over the Black Sea and are currently digging it up out of the ocean. The U.S. has also sent 2 carrier task forces in the direction of the Black Sea right outside of Turkey, and now we're seeing a B-52 conducting orbits right off of the Russian border inside of Estonia within missile range of St. Petersburg. I would have to say, it's a very noble cause by the U.S. Air Force, and fairly interesting to see that we're starting to send some fairly clear messages to the Russians that if they play around a little bit too much, we might start playing with them. And, of course, the Russians may not be too happy with having another playmate inside of their sandpit. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into the British news, which Matthew has told me a lot of y'all have been talking about, and we will actually be looking into this as much as we can tonight. The British have announced something that is actually something I'm actually questioning a little bit, and I'll explain why. The British have stated today that they will be supplying depleted uranium rounds to the Ukrainians for the Challenger 2s. The 120mm rounds are a NATO standard, so that means that these depleted uranium rounds could be used in the Leopard 2, they could also be used in the M1 Abrams as well. This is bizarre, very wild actually, because depleted uranium can punch through practically anything, from what we understand. At least that's what the public's told. But what's already interesting to me is that it kind of seems like overkill, because we already know that standard APFSDS, armor-piercing, fin-stabilized, discarding sabos that are not made out of depleted uranium can already punch through Russian armor in Ukraine, any kind they find. It can punch through even T-90Ms, which is the best thing they can find. So it's wild to think that the British are giving the Ukrainians literal overkill, because the Ukrainians can already punch through a Russian tank with relative ease. Depleted uranium is going to cut through Russian armor like butter. I don't know what the thought process is behind providing these. Of course, there may be some indications in the background, because we're starting to see a lot of things happening, that the Chinese will start to support the Russians, and they may be fearing that ZTZ-99s or ZTZ-96As could end up in the hands of the Russians, and that's why we're giving them depleted uranium shells. But at the moment, going up against conventional Soviet-era armor, depleted uranium is quite wild. And so a lot of people have been asking this question as well. Is depleted uranium radioactive? Will it kill someone if it hits a tank? And to be honest with y'all, I don't really know the answer to that either, and I've been saving this for the stream. So we're all going to find out at the same time, is depleted uranium radioactive? Depleted uranium is radioactive. Depleted uranium mainly emits alpha particle radiation. Alpha particles don't have enough energy to go through skin. As a result, exposure to the outside of the body is not considered a serious hazard. So depleted uranium, as long as you don't eat it, which I don't know how the hell they're... Well, if they eat the shell, I think they're already dead, so I don't think they'll have to worry about that too much. As long as they don't eat the thing or get hit by it, they won't get any radiation. It is not lethal. What is the benefit of depleted uranium is not supposed to be like a nuclear bomb or radioactive or anything like that. Depleted uranium is just incredibly dense, and because of its incredible density, it can practically punch through any conventional armors and also ceramic armors. Well, not ceramic, I'm sorry, let me think. Composite armors, that's the name for it, with incredible ease. It can practically go through anything. That's the benefit of depleted uranium. It's not like some kind of a deadly nuclear round. Because of the depleted uranium shell was radioactive and it was dangerous to be around, then it would be dangerous for the crew inside of the tank operating those shells to even be in the cabin or to load the shells manually. So
now it's my understanding, I've seen a lot of people concerned about this ammunition being sent to Ukraine. From my research, it looks like the enforcer is saying, it's not dangerous simply as a round, but if the dust from like an impact of the ammo hits like the side of a tank, that could be very risky to end up inhaling that. Or also if you get hit with the bullet, like shot with it, it can contaminate the internals of your body. So it's only slightly radioactive, but it still can have some health consequences.
But I would have to honestly say the health consequences of a depleted uranium shell hitting a tank is probably going to be far less than the tank turning into a Roman candle and then having a turret toss. I think that poses a greater health and safety risk to the crew. But at the same time, Matthew is correct. The particles can cause some issues if you inhale them. But once again, it's about inhaling. And if the crew is somehow alive, which is highly doubtful due to overpressure and a whole bunch of other factors, to breathe in the dust from the shell, that's probably the least of their concerns. They're lucky to have even survived to that point to even be breathing, in all honesty, because we've seen tanks get hit by shells so far in this war from just other Soviet-era tanks, and just the shell piercing through the armor and into the cabin is usually enough to cause an overpressure and just kill the crew from the shell blowing through the compartment. So I think that this may be a little bit of a I guess, a health hazard for the Russians, but not enough to really warrant much of a concern or much of a note, rather than it maybe being a little bit radioactive to them. With
Can
that,
you believe that Putin literally said it would be the equivalent of using a dirty bomb, like a nuclear dirty bomb in Ukraine?
you know, that is a little insane. I will have to actually admit that is about the most stupid take I've ever heard,
Yeah.
considering that I believe, and let me make sure I'm correct on this, do the Russians have depleted uranium rounds? And let me just check this. Huh. They have depleted uranium tank shells in their stockpile.
Huh.
Huh. That's interesting. You know, it's almost like everyone has those, and it's just kind of accepted that those would be used. How bizarre. So, anyways, we're going to be moving on. And also, on top of that, that is the stupidest thing to say, because there's nothing in any conventions of war or the Geneva Convention or anything like that that says that using depleted uranium shells is a war crime. And so as far as the rules of war go, it's fair game. So with that, we're now going to be moving over to the United States to speak of fair game, because it seems like the United States is more than happy to up the game, as they will be speeding up the delivery of M1 Abrams, as stated by the, I believe he is the, let me make sure, the White House Security Council representative today. They will be speeding it up. I don't believe we still have a timetable as to how fast these will get there, but considering that the United States military has an unlimited budget, and also the Ukrainian crews can have a little bit more accelerated training, we could see these arrive within weeks' time, but we still have really no idea. So with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Hopefully we'll see these Abrams on the front lines about as soon as the Challenger 2s will be on the front lines. And with that, we're now going to be moving on from the United States and on into Germany, where we saw that the Germans and the United States on German training grounds, most likely Vilsek, where Jesus UCSB used to be a tanker, we saw strikers in training. And so, here's the clip. This was also being conducted by the 80th Air Assault Brigade. Pretty cool music, but we gotta mute it just in case if there is a copyright concern. We can see some Humvees driving by, and here come the strikers. Ukrainian crews are training inside of these right now, and a decent amount of these may be delivered to Ukraine, although I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. You see them being followed by a supply truck and another striker. I wonder if they're ever going to get any of those M1 128s, the strikers with the 105mm gun on them. That would be fairly bizarre to see. I don't think they've ever announced any of those yet, and it appears that all of these are just the armored personnel carrier version.
You know what I say? Send everything.
Send them out. Send them out. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the news in Germany and on into Kyiv, as we also saw that the Japanese Prime Minister arrived today inside of Ukraine and declared that he would be giving a whopping $470 million purely to support the energy sector and a few other economic sectors in Ukraine. And this is massive news, as the Ukrainians are always fighting a second battle in this war to try and keep the lights on, much like we say on this channel. Keeping the electricity on inside of Ukraine is of national pertinence and importance. Ukraine is, of course, an industrialized country, much like most of the European continent, and for an industrialized society to persevere, they must have electricity. Otherwise, entire sectors of the, I guess you could say, is civilian war industry will collapse. War industry will collapse as a whole, and life itself will start to seriously get hindered. And so it's great to hear that the Japanese will be providing this kind of support to Ukraine, and hopefully this $470 million donation to their energy sector will help to keep the lights on a little bit better than they have been before. We know that the Ukrainian energy grid is around 70%, I guess you could say on at around 70%. 30% of the grid is out almost at all times, and they're constantly battling to keep those grids on or turn them back on while others get knocked out. We're now moving on from this great news from Japan and on north, where we saw some Russian volunteers that could be a member of the Freedom of Russia Legion, although it wasn't stated that way in the clip, so we're just going to call them Russian volunteers. We're talking to a school in Kyiv about how Russia is no longer really their country, and Ukraine's become their home, and they believe that they're fighting for the right cause. And so with that, here's the clip. I don't know what's up with the music.
Все.
Okay, so we have to mute it because all the guys, including me, we are all citizens of Russia right now. But Ukraine has become a new home for all of us. That's why we're participating in this war and defending our new home. We can see them with a Ukrainian flag. We see them taking pictures with the students. We see them looking at some medical gear, putting on a bulletproof vest and a helmet, giving them the whole 9 yards. We see how they move a wounded man off the field and calmly pull out a person. Now they're showing them how to apply a tourniquet. But ampules, the only thing is if someone has health problems, such as a person is constantly taking insulin, they have to take some pills. Something else, which is a must, should be freely available. We now see them messing around with the bulletproof vests again. We see that it's kind of heavy for most of them when you see them messing with tourniquets. Don't keep that on for too long. Courage is confused with stupidity.
Oh.
There is an expression, stupidity is courage. It doesn't work like that. Then the person begins to turn, it turns, and your arm pops off. I'm just kidding. And now we can see them showing them a video of what they're doing on the front lines. You see them once again taking more pictures. Can I have one, please? Yes, of course. And now we see them signing a flag, much like the 231st Battalion did for us. And with that, that's the end of the video. But I wanted to show you all that because I thought that was fairly interesting. And unlike Russian soldiers visiting Russian schools, these Russian volunteers in Ukraine have no intention of recruiting these kids, but only educating them on what's going on the front lines and what's happening in the war. And of course, that's a normal thing. You see that in a lot of countries, even here in America. That's something that normally happened in schools, is that you would have a veteran from Iraq or Afghanistan, or even the Second World War, if you were lucky enough, come to your school and explain what a war is really like and why they're needed to be avoided, or to give you a little bit more respect for the soldiers that fight in the field. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this clip and on into our location unknowns, because we've had some very interesting ones today, a very small amount as well. And so starting off with our first bit of location unknown news, we saw a Ukrainian with a duct tape rifle. Now, duct tape doesn't really have a lot of ballistic value, and luckily enough, it didn't need to have any ballistic value. It appears that it's just trying to keep the scope on this AK. Of course, duct tape is a gift from the good Lord above, and one should never waste duct tape, and this duct tape has been put to great use. But the song has to be muted. We can now see him showing off his ingenuity and craftsmanship.
It looks better this way.
It does. It looks much better this way. At least it'll keep the AK warm in the cold winter. And it looks like, okay, so there was not a mount on this thing at all. There's no mount for the scope. So he made an improvised mount out of the duct tape, which is fairly interesting. Hopefully it works. I don't know if duct tape will stand up to the vibrations of firing the gun well, but at least it'll work for a while. And we now see another soldier down there surrounded by candles sleeping. that looks medieval, honestly, with the candles down there. Looks like he's a part of some kind of early Christian.
Try it out.
Dude, it looks like he's a part of some kind of early Christian monastery in like the 4th century or something. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip, fairly interesting one, and on into our next clip, where we also saw what is inside of a Lancet drone. This is a computer chip from a Lancet drone, which is a Russian drone that's been used throughout a large part of the war. And something interesting that this picture points out is that not a single component on this, I believe it's a motherboard, if I'm correct, Matthew.
Yes, I guess you could say that.
So we'll say that. I know that the computer folks in here are probably going to get really angry at me.
Slightly, it works.
Yeah, we'll let it slide for now. But the motherboard and every single component on it is not produced in Russia. All of these components are produced in other countries. And one has to remember that the Russians have been sanctioned by pretty much every single country in the world that has a computer tech or manufacturing industry, which means that even the supply of computer chips for the drones that they're operating, such as the Lancet, which is about as simple as they get, will eventually run out, or they may be running on tight supply, making these drones more expensive to produce and also greatly limiting the numbers and times that these drones can be used. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, where we also saw the Ukrainians captured a Russian kamikaze drone. We've never seen one like this before, and I don't really know how to describe what we're seeing, but here's the clip nonetheless. We can see them looking at the drone. It has like a bomb strapped to it with duct tape and zip ties.
І непонятно, чи стоїть на замкнутий, чи на розімкнутий контакт. Коротше, будемо зараз його пробувати. Знімай.
See them talking about it, and now we can see that they have like jerry-rigged a wire connection to the drone so that way it doesn't end up doing anything crazy or blowing up, and they pretty much, I don't know, like domesticated the drone, and now it's just sitting on a table somewhere.
Дрон камікадзе. Значить, принцип роботи його який? Перед камерою стоїть два алюмінієві.
Where's the Russian to slam this thing with a stick?
Які працюють на замкнутий контакт, на електродетонаторі.
Wait a minute, that's a water bottle. They put explosives in a water bottle.
That's some spicy water. Was that Dasani?
Приблизна вага
Dasani.
десь 300 грам, напічкана металевою шрапнеллю, шариками від підшипників. І до нього прив'язана була кровля. Тобто дрон камікадзе летить прямо в окоп, в бліндаж, вдаряється оціми вусиками, які стоять перед камерою на цьому дроні. Замикають контакт на батарейку і срабатує електродетонатор з цією пластиною.
That's the end of the clip, but a wild one to see and very interesting to look at. A weird kamikaze drone that the Russians have made that apparently doesn't work too well. But now it's time for us to get into the Russian casualty report, and the numbers have been unbelievably high. 960 Russian soldiers killed over the course of 24 hours.
Jeez, odd numbers again.
Yeah, this doesn't even include the past 48 hours. This is just the past 24 hours alone. An entire battalion tactical group has been killed, along with an additional 160 soldiers. An incredibly high number, even by most countries' standards in the Second World War. 10 armored personnel carriers were also lost with these 960 troops, a fairly average number over the past month. 12 supply trucks were also destroyed as well, which is quite a high number, actually. We've seen that number is starting to drop lately, so this is a high compared to the average of the past month. 15 tanks were destroyed. A BTG and a half's worth of tanks completely wiped out over 24 hours. And an entire 2 artillery batteries plus 1 were also destroyed over the 24 hours as well. 7 drones were also shot down. And 1 Bobcat skid steer. Hey! And we gotta go to the Kyiv Independence Twitter real quick, because we always have to check it now because people are making the Bobcat skid steer joke. Oh no, that's the website. Go back.
It's on Twitter. I've seen people spamming it too. It's popping up on our Twitter notifications.
So let me go to Kyiv Independence Twitter, and let's go down here. And I've been seeing that too today, and that's why we got to go look, because I don't know how many people are starting to spam that on the Kyiv Independence website. And so, wouldn't that be sad, Matthew, if that's the way we meet Zelenskyy is from the Bobcat joke? But anyways, wait, hang on. Where's the comments?
Down below. Just scroll down.
Oh, here we go. Hey!
What the hell is this?
I don't know. I think it's a Caterpillar commercial, but that's just wild.
Where's the Bobcat, though?
Oh, look at the Jim Smith. It's a Bobcat. Oh, man.
Hey, it's a cheap off-brand one, too.
Yeah, it is.
It's a legit one.
This one's one of those Yugoslavian Bobcats or something.
Yes.
And let's see, what else do we have? Don't see any more so far. Those look like the only 2 today.
Oh. You see that picture? Go back up.
Wait a minute. Hey, John Bridges. He put down 1 too. Wait, what was the other one?
Roll back up. Roll up. Look at that picture of Putin in that dynasty. That's the fake Putin, according to Ukrainian intelligence.
I mean, at this point, seeing that jawline, maybe. I'm not doubting it at this point. Because, man.
It's brutal.
That is a weak jawline right there. Dang. Someone get this man plastic surgery stat. That's just something. Jeez. But I'm trying to make sure. Oh, look, Melissa Smith put one down. Hey! And look.
Oh. it's a
Tremaine
pink
Fryer.
tractor.
Yeah. And then we got another one, just one today from Ron Anderson. Mr. Clucky as well. You put one down. Oh my gosh. There's so many people that are getting into this joke. Oh man. I'm going to be honest with y'all.
I love this.
That would be so sad if that's the way we meet President Zelenskyy and he's like, I hear you like bobcats. I'd be like, it's like the fundraisers just don't matter. It's just the bobcat. But anyways, that's great to see. I had to go check that out because we get a huge laugh out of that. And I thank all of y'all so much for putting little comments on the Kyiv Independence Casualty Report. So that way we could go down there and get a good laugh about it on stream. And so with that, we're going to be moving on out of our location unknowns and on into the northeastern area and the rest of the front lines. Of course, Bakhmut has been the center of attention today, racking up a large amount of videos and a massive amount of action, although the Ukrainians have been holding the line foot for foot, yard for yard, house for house. But before we get into any of this news in the Northeast, we have to cover the polls, and we have to go over what y'all are saying. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so for the first question segment, we have 3 polls to address. And also, if y'all have a question for us, you do not have to send in a super chat, and you can send us a live chat. Simply tag @EnforcerMatt with no space, and I'll add it to the spreadsheet. Right now, we're having a bit of a shortage of live chat questions tonight, so I need a whole bunch more. But anyways, our first poll says, during their summit, Putin and Xi agreed that NATO is the strongest threat to their nations, and what are your thoughts? 45% said they are teaming up to fight NATO, 10% said unsure, 24% said it's only talk of deterrence, and 21% said Russia and China aren't teaming up. And I think today, after we witnessed them sign a formal agreement, it was an economic agreement, but we don't know the substance of what exactly was in it. Some speculate it could have been lethal aid, but we really don't know. One thing they did state publicly is they're going to team up to try to push back NATO. They think they're encroaching on their territory, both China and Russia do. So I'm going to say that they're probably teaming up to fight NATO would be my best guess. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would say it seems to be that way right now, and it's very interesting to finally see, considering that the Chinese have been waffling for nearly a year and a month at this point. It seems now that they're coming forward and actually siding with the Russians. Now, I would say that according to historical trends with Russia and China, they both would agree that NATO is encroaching on their territory, considering that both of them consider their territory to be outside of their own country. For example, the Chinese trying to control pretty much the entirety of the South China Sea and the trade that travels through it, as well as Taiwan, and the Russians trying to once again regain all that was lost during the collapse of the Soviet Union, reclaiming the Baltic states, Belarus, Ukraine, and even realized the Russian Empire, maybe again, by taking parts of Poland, which were a part of the Russian Empire at one time. So I would say that makes a logical sense, considering their perspectives, for them to both agree that NATO is against their interests of expansion, because of course we are, and also it's a little concerning to see, though, I will have to say, because the Chinese do possess a decent amount of economic, I guess you could say, prowess. I guess that would be the best way to say it. They do have the second largest GDP in the world. GDP, top 3 GDP in the world. And let me put that down. Number 1, of course, is the United States. I believe our GDP right now is somewhere around 21 trillion. So I don't know what year this is supposed to be, because I feel like this is like 2020 maybe. Let's see, biggest GDP, of course, the United States, over 20 trillion. We know that. Dang, we'll go to Investopedia. Maybe they'll just have a quick answer here. So, okay, so here we go. Here is the current GDPs. And this seems to be the latest numbers. Number 1 is the United States at $23 trillion. Number 2 is China at $17.7 trillion. And the Chinese economy has been growing rapidly. Of course, there is a little bit of an issue with the Chinese economy, considering that it is almost entirely based on exports only. There is no service industry. There's really no domestic economy. Almost a large portion of their annual economic GDP growth comes from them being able to export massive amounts to other countries, like the European Union as an economic union, not just a single country, and the United States, Canada, and also, I believe, to a smaller part, Mexico. So it's something, I guess you could say, that is a little concerning that they will start to back the Russians, considering that they do have a decent amount of money and a large amount of manufacturing, and they could produce a large amount of stuff at a cheap price and maybe give it to the Russians to help them out in this war. Of course, Chinese equipment still does not compare to American or Western equipment. Western equipment does hold an advantage over Chinese equipment still, although there's been massive modernization programs in China. Their military budget is just not large enough to allow them to get the kind of technological gains that the United States has. So it is concerning.
Also, Mark Slava Ukraine said, look at the GDP/capita.
It's a massive difference. It's a huge difference. Average
Very
Chinese
big.
person per year makes around $12,556. An average person in the United States makes $69,000 per year right now, according to the current figures. So that is something interesting to note. That's a great thing to note, Mark, by the way. But at the same time, the government and the money they're able to spend is what matters. And the Chinese do have a GDP that shows that they may be able to spend on par with the United States in their support to Russia. But once again, that hasn't yet to be seen. It just appears that it may be moving in that direction, which is somewhat concerning. So with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next poll says the NATO chief says there are signs that China has promised Russia lethal aid as of today, and what are your thoughts? 70% said they likely agreed to it, 14% said unsure, 7% said likely not, and 9% said it's unlikely that they agreed to it. And I have to say, I am definitely going to be within the 70% cap. I think that China probably has promised Russia some sort of lethal aid. We have found out that, I think $12 million of aid has reached Russia through shell companies from China. It's unclear whether or not the Chinese government sponsored that. They are state-owned companies, so it'd be unlikely that they had no knowledge of it. But very, very concerning. And also the West today started upgrading the speed at which we were going to send tanks and weapon systems, which is kind of odd and came out of nowhere, which might suggest that China has decided to support Russia. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it is very concerning to hear that they may be sending lethal aid to the Russians, but at the same time, $12 million of military support to the Russians is a drop in the bucket compared to the around, I believe it was like $90 billion, and that number may be incorrect. Correct me if I'm wrong, but don't, when I say that in the live chat, don't just say you're wrong, because that doesn't help me. Say that's incorrect. The actual number was this, because I'm trying to gauge it, because I've heard somewhere around $90 billion was sent to the Ukrainians last year, but I haven't actually seen anyone give a hardcore solid number around 90 billion. So let me know if that is correct or not. But $12 million in support to Russia compared to 90 billion alone from the United States last year is paling in comparison. 12 million is still not great. It's not good to know that the Chinese are supporting the Russians at all. But if that's the kind of support they're getting, and it's just a trickle, it's not that concerning right now. What would be very concerning is to hear the Chinese government announce that they're going to be sending billions of dollars worth of stuff to the Russians. Then that's concerning. And would be certainly worth heavy sanctions and, in fact, cutting off all trade with China and trying to outsource that manufacturing to another country. And a lot of people always say, and I'll say this, a lot of people always say, bring the manufacturing back to Europe and the United States. It's a good idea in theory, but in practice, it just doesn't really work, because a company has to pay so much to operate in the United States that their products are at a higher price when they finally get them to market, and then they're not competitive. And so they're always going to try and find a country where they can practically pay nothing to have the stuff produced and then ship it back to the United States to sell at competitive prices. And so you'll probably see that if we want to move our industry from China, we'll most likely start moving it into Vietnam, India, or a similar country with a massive population that will work for practically pennies, because that's just how the Western world works at this point. But still, I don't know what we're going to do in the meantime, because this is a concerning situation, especially since there is a decent amount at play strategically for the United States and Ukraine. So with that,
This could break out to a proxy war very quickly if China starts supplying Russia.
it could. It actually could. We might see that a second Cold War begins, but with the Chinese and the United States instead of the Soviets and the United States. So with that, also a lot of people are saying Mexico. Mexico is a good bet to send foreign industry to. But right now, with the governmental instability in Mexico due to the cartel war that's going on down there, it's probably not going to be drawing in a lot of investors or a lot of companies. The Mexican government will really have to crack down on the cartels and, I guess you could say, try and secure some kind of governmental stability to ensure that these companies do have an advantage to hiring large labor forces or even moving large labor forces into Mexico for them to work there. But it is possible. I would say that's not out of the question. Nabisco and I believe Ford moved their manufacturing into Mexico, and it seems, as far as I'm understanding, they largely stayed there. So that may be an actual chance. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that poll into the next one. I hope we addressed that fairly well.
All right, and we have one last one for the first question segment, and this one says, Russia says it will respond to depleted uranium ammo being supplied to Ukraine and treat them as dirty nukes. And what are your thoughts? 56% said that is total propaganda and completely false. 7% said unsure. 32% said he's just talking again. And 5% said he's right. Depleted uranium is very bad. And I have to say, I am somewhat mixed about sending the depleted uranium ammo, but the idea that it's equivalent to a dirty nuke is completely insane. It's not anywhere close to that, and it's just Russia trying to drum up some propaganda again. But I think Britain ought to think very carefully before sending that ammo to Ukraine. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'm for sending depleted uranium shells. There's no real problem with them because, calling them a dirty bomb, it's not like when it hits a tank, it blows up with a force of 5 kilotons of nuclear weaponry. It's not a nuke. It's just made out of uranium. And then on top of that, it's depleted uranium. On top of that, once again, to breathe in the dust, you would have to be alive and somehow survive the overpressure, and also hope that your tank doesn't turn into a Roman candle after being hit by the shell. So the chances of even surviving to breathe in the dust are already low. And then if you breathe in the dust, it's like, well, boo-hoo, maybe you shouldn't have gone to war and then get hit by a depleted uranium shell. It's not really like we can control that kind of stuff. And also, it's not against the rules of war either, so it's like, why whine? That's just the way things are. So I would say that I don't see any problem with the Ukrainians using them, but I do kind of ask the question again, because I brought this up earlier. Why are we sending a shell that has such an exorbitant amount of overkill for the situation? Because the Ukrainians are already able to destroy Russian tanks with Stugnas, javelins, normal APFSDS shells, even sometimes, I don't know, but maybe even heat fin stabilized shells. It seems to me like depleted uranium is great because it can punch through literally anything. So if the Russians ever get something the Ukrainians can't punch through now, the depleted uranium will take care of it. But, they can punch through everything right now, so I don't know why we'd be sending that unless if it's in anticipation that the Russians may be receiving something in the future or getting something in the future that may be able to tank a normal shot and keep on going. So with that, and also I see a lot of people saying, no problem with overkill or anything like that. There may be a slight problem with overkill, because if you overkill and you overpin, there's a chance that less damage is caused. You kind of don't really want to punch clean through the armor like butter, and that has to do a lot with spalling, which is like a whole thing that it takes too much to get into. But to explain spalling, imagine a wooden board you're holding in your hand and you flick it and just crack that thing as hard as you can from both sides. Where the center cracks, splinters go flying out. And metal does the same thing when hit. When hit hard enough and in the right way, a lot of splinters come off of metal. They're just little metallic fragments. It's literally shrapnel. And it goes through the cab, bouncing off of everything, and it just eats the crew alive. That is kind of what you want with a shell. So you don't want a shell to go through too quickly or too well, because you're going to get very little spalling, and of course the crew may still be concussed or killed by overpressure, but who knows. So you kind of want a shell that penetrates the armor well, but you don't want to do it too well, because then it may just go clean through and then the damage is a little minimal. But still, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Paul Vaughn,
I have a feeling that it can't be overkill because for Putin to react in such a rash way to claim it's the equivalent of a dirty nuke, there must be something that we're not aware of that is going to be devastating to the Russians if Ukraine gets it.
You know, it may be that a Western a Western tank will do incredibly well. We already know that against the Russians. That is just a technological given. The depleted uranium shells may make these things unstoppable as far as the Russians are concerned. And maybe they may be thinking that they'll be looking at a 93 Easting kind of situation wherever there's a Western tank. If y'all don't know, the Battle of 93 Easting was the last major tank battle. Wait a minute, did I get that wrong? Is it? I swear it's 93 Easting. Let me type that in. The battle. Oh my God, I got it wrong. I'm gonna get flamed. It's the Battle of 73 Easting. I'm so sorry, everyone. But the Battle of 73 Easting, we slaughtered the Iraqis that were using what we would call now in the Ukraine war Russian armor. I mean, you know, this is a Type 69 tank, which is kind of based off of a T-54 or T-55. The Russians are practically using that right now. We blew the Iraqis away. They didn't even stand a chance. We didn't even lose a tank. We lost one Bradley, and that was it. So the Russians may be scared that if the West is able to send Western tanks to Ukraine, which are very capable with depleted uranium shells, they may just blast them away and there's no chance of ever coming back from it, and their armor just gets wiped out. That may be what they're scared of, because it's not that it's a nuke. Obviously, it's not a dirty bomb or anything like that. It may be that it'll be so effective at destroying Russian tanks in such quick mass and number, along with the capability of a Western tank, that there's really nothing they can do to stop them. So, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well. Also, I see a lot of people saying, he still can't do math. Yeah, I can't, can I? I somehow got the number wrong. I said 93 Easting. I talked about this battle literally like 5 days ago, and I got the number right then. I don't know what is in my head with numbers. I just can't get numbers. So, with that, I hope we address that fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and that was our last poll, so we're moving on to our super chat questions, and we have 3, as always, during our first one, and they all 3 go to Mark, Slava Ukraine, all 3 of them. They're each a $100 donation, and thank you very much, Mark, for being extremely generous with that and supporting the channel. And the very first one says, Putin plus Xi equals despicable duo.
I would certainly agree with you, Mark. Putin and Xi are fairly despicable and questionable people. If you ever sit there and have someone get voted in as president for life, you already know they're a very questionable person. And Xi does fit that category. Now, I don't know. Of course, we still cannot talk about what the Chinese do inside of their country well, because I don't know if YouTube is going to come down here and bust out our kneecaps. But I would have to say, the Chinese are a very questionable country on the governmental level. I don't really know a lot about the Chinese people themselves, because you don't really get to talk to them a lot because they're all stuck on WeChat, and they never get to go out into the wild internet where you can just talk to them. So I don't really know what normal Chinese people are thinking, but the Chinese government is incredibly questionable, and Xi is a very questionable person, especially with the aggressive expansion they're trying to do into the South China Sea and Taiwan and create a sphere of control down here. So that is fairly concerning. I would certainly agree with you that they are questionable folks. And so with that, thank you so much.
Very questionable. Every time I see Putin and Xi together, I think of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet.
Winnie the Pooh. And then Xi looks at Siberia with all those raw resources. He goes, honey. And it's like, oh no.
And then Piglet, little Piglet in Russia. Oh, dear.
Pooh, or I'm getting blown away by the Ukrainians. Can I have some money? Oh, dear.
And the shells came down.
And anyways, thank you so much once again for the support, Mark. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on rolling. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And the second one from Mark, Slava Ukraine, says, respect my authority, said Eric Cartman.
Who's Eric Cartman?
I would have to pull that up. Use that Google.
Oh, I thought I had heard this before. It's a South Park character.
Oh, yeah, that's the main character, I think.
Respect my authority. I don't know how he talks. Maybe that was close. But anyways, Thank you so much once again for the support, Mark. And I guess you could say that the Russians and the Chinese do want people to respect their authority. I just don't think anyone's going to respect it, though, because look at the
like
Russians.
a true Southern too.
Yeah.
Respect my authority.
Oh man, oh man. Whenever a policeman pulls you over and you start recording him, stop filming me. Why? Respect my authority.
Yeah.
Oh man. It happens almost every time. Every time I tell you. One day though, I will get them on film. They're like Sasquatch or something. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that addresses that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the last one. But thank you so much once again, Mark, for the support, the massive amount of support, and helping this channel to keep on rolling. But with that, let's get to the last one from Mark again.
All right, and this last one says, I'm playing with the nations.
He's playing with the nations?
Playing with donations, because I think one of them came from Canada, I think. The other one came from, like, US dollars. I think that's the one that's currently up.
And another one came from
he's switching around his
New Zealand,
VPN like crazy.
Dude, I was, for the longest time, we thought Mark was actually traveling all the way from Canada to New Zealand. And I was always wondering, how the hell does he tolerate that 18-hour flight, like, every few weeks? But actually, it seems that it may be a VPN now. Or he actually does, I don't know, he's giving us the bamboozle right now. I don't know if he's actually traveling all the way to New Zealand every once in a while or not. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, Mark, and playing with the super chats. It does appear that interestingly enough, I think the New Zealand one actually showed up as pink or something like that. It's like a pinkish purple color, which is less than red. Yeah, which is weird because it's almost like it's like maybe like $10 less than $100 US. But at the same time, it just threw it down into the next category, which was weird. I was like, why? But anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. Once again, Mark, you're helping this channel to keep on running, and we thank you so much for being a longtime channel viewer, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of this question segment and back into the news, and strap yourselves in because it's going to be a lot of it to cover. We've been trying to cover it as fast as we can tonight, and it looks like right now we will still probably be running over schedule. So moving on up into Kupiansk, and just in case you're all wondering, if you look down at the bottom right of my screen, we always try and make sure that the news segment is about an hour and 40 minutes long. At the longest, 2 hours. And we're still shooting tonight to make it an hour and 40 minutes long, because I understand that some of y'all come here for the news and the news only, and we want to make sure that it's put out in a reasonable amount of time, instead of taking, like 3 hours like the whole stream is, which is incredibly long. And I understand that some of y'all cannot be here for all of it. Some of y'all can only be here for some of it. So with that, we're moving on into Kupiansk, where we saw some Ukrainian defenders on ice. Back in the mob days, that would mean that you were gunned down, but in Ukraine, it means that you're literally on a lake of ice. And they're dancing, but we can't listen to the music because it's TikTok music, and sometimes that can be a little questionable. But we see them dancing right here, having a good time, and of course, the morale is pretty good. One of them's going to fall and they're going to break through the ice. It's not going to be funny, but still, for now, it looks great.
So cold.
Oh, it's so cold. It's so freezing. Man, I'm telling you, I get no respect around here. But anyways, we're now moving on from that little clip in the Kupiansk area, and now moving on down into the Severodonetsk, Seversk area. There was no video clips that came from Crimea, but we did see some news coming from Seversk and Severodonetsk. And of course, the front lines in the north over the past 48 hours have had very little changes. In fact, changes not really worth covering. There was only one field captured near Dvorchina, and that was it. And so now moving on down into the area of Severodonetsk and Seversk, we saw over the past 48 hours that Ukrainian forces widen the gap in between them and the Russians here in no man's land near Avdiivka and also Sperny. We do not understand the reasoning or the purpose to this, I guess you could say, widening or widening of the no man's land, but for now, that's the only thing that's occurred in the area. Starting off with our first video clip, we actually saw that the Russians ran into, oh no, misfortune. They actually ran into a power line with a very expensive helicopter, and the crew was completely killed. They never had a chance to eject, and so the helicopter just slammed right into the ground after running into the power line. We can see that right here. Unfortunate. I don't know if insurance will cover that for him, but that's nice. We're moving on into our next clip. And I got to give it to the power lines, Matthew. They just got themselves a kill. The energy infrastructure of Ukraine has claimed a kill. Incredible. We're now moving on down into the area of Avdiivka, where we saw that the Ukrainians were able to destroy a Tor M2 surface-to-air missile system with a drone. And so with this, here's the clip. You see the Tor right there. It has a red box on it. We now see the drone flying in, hitting the Tor, and it appears that the crew has bailed out and is running away. We now see another one coming into the Tor and hitting it dead on. This time closer to the frontward area of the turret near the radar, and now we can see the rest of the crew bailing out of this Tor. You now see the other Tor sitting inside the tree line. This one appears to be damaged. The crew did abandon it. It's no longer operational due to a lack of crew. The other one was destroyed due to the direct hit. And it's very nice to see that the SBU is still out there knocking out Tors all over the place. They're $15 million apiece. They're a massive and integral part of Russia's surface-to-air missile defense systems inside of Ukraine, and each one of those that's even damaged is seriously hindering the Russians' air defenses. With that, we're now moving on into the area south of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, which is the city of Bakhmut. Over the past 48 hours, the lines have held, and they've held incredibly well. Now, to explain something real quick, we did see a large Russian move, I guess a large relative to Bakhmut, in the southern area, right there. And then over the next 24 hours, you would see this little area of gray move. To explain what the front line means real quick, the white area is an area that is clearly controlled by Ukraine. The gray area is an area that is called no man's land. This is in between Ukrainian control and Russian control. Ukrainian and Russian units are either not present in these areas and the area is completely abandoned, or they are currently fighting over it. So for example, an area like this near the small creek, the Ukrainians are down here in the city blocks, the Russians are on top of the hill, and they're firing and fighting with each other over this little area near this creek. Down here in this area though, 48 hours ago, there were probably no Ukrainians here whatsoever. It was most likely abandoned space, considering how risky and dangerous it would be for Ukrainian forces to move through no man's land into what could become an encirclement, and so we probably saw that there were no Ukrainians there. So this isn't really a Russian push fighting and battling the Ukrainians out of this area. It's most likely the Russians finally moving forward and claiming an area that had practically been abandoned for several days at this point. Beyond that, no large advances have been occurring in the area of Bakhmut, and it appears that the Ukrainians are holding the line block for block, house for house, much like they have been over the past few weeks. We're now going to be moving into the footage here, which also tells a similar story. Starting off on the northern area of the city, where we saw some Ukrainians in some trenches in the area of the city.
No.
We see them looking around outside their trench and just hanging out.
Да, он самий.
Передай Україні привіт.
Привіт, Україні.
З Бахмута, Бахмут, Україна.
З Бахмута. Тримаємося.
You hear some artillery exploding in the distance as they joke around and talk to each other.
У мене грошей нема, ти мене гостаєш?
Да?
Плюс. Ума, привіт.
We now see the cameraman.
Плюс. Все, обняв.
With that, that's the end of the clip. But there's a little bit of a look at the fighting in the hills just north of the city of Bakhmut and a little bit to its west. We're now going to be moving on down into the city itself, where we saw that heavy firefights were continuing in the no man's land areas on the northern end of the city. Here's the clip. We hear heavy firefights going on outside. We see this Ukrainian getting close to the window and looking at the destroyed city. Firefight going on outside. You hear rifle fire bouncing off the ground near him or whizzing right past his window. And it sounds as though they may have an NSV machine gun inside of the building, and they're firing outwards towards the Russians. That's the end of that clip, but giving you a little bit of a look at the fighting going on in the northern end of the city. Of course, the Ukrainians are holding the Russians back. It appears that the Russians are fighting house by house, moving on down towards Ukrainian defensive positions. But skyscrapers like these provide a massive defensive benefit to the Ukrainians, as they are able to look down these rows of houses and fire on the Russians at somewhat considerable range for what urban combat can provide. We're now going to be moving on down into our next clip a little bit further south, but still in the northern area of the city, where we saw a Ukrainian soldier firing off an RPG.
Go.
We hear explosions in the distance. We hear the cameraman say, go. He's like, okay, we're rolling.
Go.
You see him firing it. The whole entire building is covered in dust from the backblast. And now you can see him moving out of the way of the window. And that's the end of the clip. But once again, a small little look, a very small look, at the Ukrainian infantrymen fighting in the northern area of the city. We're now going to be moving on into our next one, completely to the south of the city. We couldn't really locate any that we could say was in the center of Bakhmut today, so all of them were either in the north or the south. It makes sense that there is no fighting in the center, because you once again have to remember, the Bakhmutka River, while small, does provide a large geographical challenge to the Russians actually crossing the river and fighting on the other side. And so it makes a decent amount of sense that the fighting intensity would be lower near this area. It would be higher nearer to the south and the north, where the Russians have a clear route of advance. Now, moving on down into the southern area of the city, we can see that the fighting continued down here as well. A pretty, I guess you could say, steady firefight as well. So here's the clip. You hear some yelling in the distance.
Вырезайся.
Now here's some firing going on. Someone's firing their rifle at the Russians. You now see the cameraman got done firing. Here's the squad still returning fire on the Russians. Now see the soldier moving back into the house. Another one
Герой! Сука, граната!
Apparently there was a grenade outside at the end of the clip. I don't know. Wait, let's go back and look at that, because I think what we saw.
Герой!
Oh, right there! Oh my god, there was a grenade right there!
Герой!
Watch, here it comes. Right there. It came.
Oh,
so
jeez.
the Russians are so close in this video, they're in grenade distance. And so then the guy yells grenade, and they all go running into the house and try and get into the basement.
Сука, граната!
So now they're getting down. We don't know what happened after this clip, if any of them got wounded by the grenade explosion. They may have been protected by the brick wall, because the grenade kind of landed a little bit in front of the house, but at the same time, some shrapnel may have made it in and bounced around, maybe wounded one of them, but we can't really tell because the video ends here. But that is how intense and insane the urban fighting has become, is that Russians and Ukrainians are getting so close to each other in these firefights that they are in grenade tossing distance, which is maybe about 30 yards, which is very, very close. In fact, that would be pistol range normally. So with that, and of course I'm not saying that in urban combat you switch to pistols when you get that close. I'm saying that you could accurately shoot someone with a pistol at this kind of fighting with that kind of range. 50 yards is about the farthest you can shoot a pistol, and I believe in the Second World War it was expected that a pistol would be accurate about to around 25 to 30 yards. So that is pistol distance according to World War II standards and also modern standards, because hell, a pistol doesn't shoot farther because time's moved on or anything. But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip in the southern Bakhmut and on into our next one, where we saw an update from a soldier in the area called Roman. And so here is an update from Roman.
Hello, Voices for Ukraine. It's Roman again from... Oh, I don't know, it's not even Ukraine, it's some kind of tea stick here, because everything is destroyed by enemies' artillery and tanks. And this fight began at 6 in the morning, and now it's 13. It still continue, and I'm totally physically and emotionally exhausted, because it's 3 or 4 days. I don't know actually. It's continued 3 or 4 days. Sleepless night, maybe 1 or 2, maximum 3 hours per day. Non-regular food. So for today. yesterday is my first meal. I was so lucky enough to find in my pocket this energy bar with berry and chocolate, and it's so cool because today I lost few combat brothers. Also, I destroyed few invaders. I received so much emotions for my whole future life, and of course physically and emotionally disgusted. But I'm so appreciated to eat this delicious energy bar, and I realized that life is amazing, guys. That's true. That's totally true. So if I'll survive here, my life will be even more valuable than before, because I'm sure that life is a great present. Yeah.
So with that's the end of the clip. But there was a little update from Roman, and it actually says that this was Roman's latest update. A lot of y'all are here saying in this live chat, like, prayers for Roman. I was sitting there thinking, what, did he die? It doesn't say anything about him dying. So that was his latest update, and hopefully he's all right. Of course, the shells were landing a little close to him, maybe a few hundred yards away. But rather than that, he seems that he's having a pretty okay time, enjoying that little energy bar and just chilling. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news inside of Bakhmut, and well to the rear to the area of Chasiv Yar, where we saw the road to Bakhmut littered with vehicles that had met somewhat unfortunate fates. This is the only road that can be traveled into the area of Bakhmut, and so of course it is a dangerous one. Where you see all the cars that have tried to make the same trip and weren't so lucky. And so with that, we are now moving on into the next clip. And also, a lot of people are saying prayers for his safety. I'm sorry, I misunderstood that the first time. I thought y'all were saying he was dead. I was like, what? I was like, no. I was like, hopefully he's not dead, because we put his updates on here many times. Like, hell, he has become the man of Bakhmut at this point with how many updates he's been putting out. And he's a really interesting guy to listen to. Of course, I'm sorry about the low audio. He is just quiet, or the audio is quiet. I don't really know how to explain it. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip in the area of Bakhmut and further south and on into the Donetsk area. Of course, not a lot of frontline activity occurs outside of Bakhmut. There is a heavy battle going on in the Avdiivka area, but it appears that there's not really a lot of video footage that comes out on that one. So we're now going to be moving on down near the direction of Orlivka, where we saw a Ukrainian soldier with a doggy. It's a precious dog. Oh, look at it. It's so sweet. I love dogs. And so
Slava dog.
Slava the dog. But anyways, that's all there is to this. It was just a little picture of a dog in the area of the Donetsk region, and I thought it was really nice, and I thought I'd show it to y'all. And so we're now going to be moving on from this little picture and down into the area of Avdiivka. And so real quick, let me get you all the frontline map and show you all the past 48 hours in this direction. And so the past 48 hours have once again resulted in absolutely no frontline changes whatsoever, as you can see right here. But of course, the Ukrainians do say that this is the second heaviest battle on the front lines next to Bakhmut. But at the same time, I don't know how heavy most battles are, considering that there really are no battles going on right now. So if there even is a small battle going on, it is probably going to be the second largest battle next to Bakhmut. But once again, we don't have a lot of video evidence to tell us how well or how badly things are going here. So with that, we got a video clip today showing some prisoners of war, Russian prisoners of war, helping to move one of their own wounded. So here's the clip.
Белая лента — это ДНР? Вы украинцы, да? Бывшие.
Нету ничего, на ты не было.
Точно? Бля, пацаны, давайте якось, може, вместе станем.
And with that, that's the end of the clip. But we can see that they took on 3 prisoners of war today, including one that was wounded. And it appears that they told the Russian prisoners of war to move out the wounded. pretty common stuff, but still, 3 prisoners added to the prisoner exchange. We're now going to be moving on out of the Avdiivka area and further on south and into the southern front, where there has been a small amount of activity, but of course, not a lot of frontline changes. Starting off in Staromayorsk, where we saw an Azov crew on the southern front operating a mortar. These are some pretty nice pictures, some pretty interesting ones, and once again showing that the Azov Brigade was not defeated in Mariupol, but continued to live on through its multiple other brigades and battalions at this point, fighting in other areas, such as the Zaporizhia front, just 50 miles away from Mariupol. When you see them operating the mortar here in the pictures, and of course, they're probably doing an effective job with drone support, able to guide these mortar rounds within yards or just feet of their target. With that, we're now going to be moving on out of the pictures here in that direction and further on down towards Kyiv, where we saw an ammo dump exploding in fantastic fashion. I've got to tell you, Matthew, it's really nice to see. And so we're going to have to stop the copyright-free blog music, and here's the explosion of the ammo depot. It's not. Wait a minute. Nope. Correction. That is not an ammo depot. That's a tank. Oh. Because right here, Matthew, right there, wait a minute, that's the turret.
Is that a toss?
That's a toss. All right, we need to get the numbers here. What is this turret toss on a scale of 1 to 10? That is pretty high. Did not fly straight up and straight down, and went a little bit to the rear of the tank by about 100 yards.
Look at that arc, though.
Yeah,
I mean, that was almost a near perfect arc.
That was an impressive arc. That is not an ammo depot. That's a tank. So let's get a rating on that turret toss. 1 out of 10. No wrong answers, just your opinion. That is great, though. Let's watch that one more time. That thing got airtime, man. That crew went on an international flight.
I'm giving that a solid 8.2 out of 10.
I'm giving it a 9. That was a pretty impressive one, in my opinion. Of course, allegedly. But with that...
And more points for going straight up and down, though, but the arc was well executed.
Yeah, that was a pretty solid one. It looks like we're getting a lot of 9s. So a lot of people think it was close. Some 10s, actually. We're getting some 10s. So it looks like a lot of people thought it was an excellent turret toss. We're getting some 6s in there, though, too. But those are a little bit more rare. So it looks like most people are saying somewhere around a 9. So yeah, I would have to definitely agree with you. It is definitely around a 9. Or Matthew's, I believe it was like an 8.2?
Yes.
8.2, 9?
Yes.
Somewhere in that range. Not that bad, not that bad. So with that, we're now going to be moving on from that little clip in the southern front. And believe it or not, we've actually been able to get... Oh, wait a minute. No, we haven't. There's Russian news that we have not covered. We're now going to be moving on into Russia. And let me make sure I'm not missing any more. Okay, we're not missing any more. We're moving on into Russia because I knew I was missing something tonight, and it was the Russian news. In Moscow today, we've seen some interesting things. Of course, Moscow is a cesspit, so there's always something interesting going on in there somewhere. But today we've had some really interesting things. Starting off with our first clip of some technical difficulties. It appears that one of the propagandists that are always on Solovyev's show may have been affected by his aura. Here's the clip.
Америка не считала никогда цветы для людей.
Подождите, не поднимайте так быстро.
Врача срочно в студию.
Не поднимайте так быстро.
Лежите, не вставайте пока. Пока не вставайте. Все хорошо.
That music doesn't help the situation.
That's literally like that UFO music, you know, that, you know, that one? Like Soloviev gave him the laser beam, Matthew. He sat there, you're not pro-Russian enough. And it just made him collapse.
He did. He glanced right at him, and the man fell down.
Yeah, like, look, he's sitting there talking. Looks right out, and he goes down.
He didn't act shocked by it either.
And he's walking over there. He's looking over there like, my powers appear to be strengthening. Oh, man. And I like how...
You're only supposed to do 1 line, comrade, not 2.
This is méchant. You're not here anymore. You go to the cornfield. But I like how these two guys over here are just like spectators to the whole thing. They're like, well, we got first row seats. This is very nice. Probably because they know if they move from their podiums, he'll give them the death beam and they'll drop to the floor. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip, a fairly interesting one as they come, and now on into our next one, where we saw that a Russian propagandist, another one that we haven't really seen much on this channel, said that the Russians live poorly and they're happy with it. So here's the clip. We don't risk anything. In fact, what do you expect from a beggar? One of the most important Russian proverbs and sayings is, do not live richly, there is nothing to start. Has this proverb disappeared from our lives? No, we still use it. Just because Moscow at some point decided that it is the capital of the world, and we live here in a real global metropolis, and ride electric scooters, and some even drink pumpkin lattes, so what? It doesn't mean anything. It can impress only fools, and the other 150 million citizens of Russia are not impressed by it. So, now that he said all this about, it's fine to live poor, it's okay to be a poor person, in Russia, you know, like, just to never have anything in life, let's see if we can get the name of this guy, Mardan. Mardan, Russia.
How do we know how the Russians would react to it? They haven't ever had the opportunity to have any luxuries in Russia.
Good question. So let's click on, the devil here, and let's see if we can find him on this list.
He looks always like a friendly fellow in all these photographs.
Yeah, he always does. Look at that one. Yeah, let's see. Can someone give me the name of this guy? Because he's talking about pumpkin latte and electric scooters and stuff. And I bet you he drinks pumpkin lattes and rides electric scooters while he's telling everyone else in the country it's fine not to have that. So I got to get this guy's name. We're not moving on until I can get this guy's name. Because all it says is Mardan, and I'm not really seeing his name anywhere else.
Anybody have the answer?
Does anyone have the answer, Don? I'm looking for the answer, Don.
Someone said Satan. That's too generic.
There's a little that doesn't narrow it down. Let's see. I'm not seeing a name come up yet.
Mini Satan.
Mini Satan.
No, it could be.
Oh, that narrows it down a little bit, so we know it's not Volodymyr. Or Vladimir, actually. Let's see. Sergei Mardan.
Sergei Mardan. Come on, Don.
So does this guy only have a YouTube channel? Nope, that's not it.
That is not him.
Sergei. Oh, wait a minute, I spelled it wrong. Mardan. There we go. Alright, so now we found it. Alright, so Sergei Mardan. Let's go to the images and let's check. This is the guy. Sergei Mardan net worth. Well, let's see here. This is from the Ukrainian government. So, see, we got any. He's from Nizhny Novgorod.
Punch on the assets tab up there on next to personal data.
Assets.
Oh, no assets found, yeah.
Oh man. This guy might be speaking from experience. See what I'm saying there? It's okay. I don't make any money off of doing this show, but I feel like that's a bit of a stretch though, because this guy is on a pretty big channel, and he's running this show. He's got to be paid something. Let's see. Let's look at this one. Let's see. No, there's no net worth anywhere.
He must be loaded if his net worth isn't public.
Yeah, this guy's got to have something, and that's what we're trying to find out here. Because I promise you, this guy is.
Wait, go back down.
What?
Did I see him on a professional page there? Let's see something. NBC Palm Springs.
Let's see here. Doesn't look like there's a lot on him.
Huh. I think that article right there has his name in it.
Let's go click on it and find that. But then again, this doesn't look like it's going to give us any net worth. It looks like it may just mention him in here. Yeah, I think it probably is.
That's a lot of reading.
I mean,
oh wait, there it is. Sergei Mardan. Yeah, it's just his name in there.
Yeah.
He's just quoting something.
Yeah, not that great. But he's big enough that he's been mentioned.
Check the dark web done.
Check the darker web done. Let's check this one. Okay, that's the same guy, but no picture here even. So we don't really know about his net worth, but I promise you, if he's in the Russian inner circle well enough that he is able to get a show and sit here and talk on it, I promise you, I'll put money on it. This guy has got millions in the bank. He's more well off than any other Russian you can imagine. This guy's living in Moscow, because that's where all of this propaganda stuff is done from, is either St. Petersburg or Moscow, two best cities in Russia. And he's out there drinking the pumpkin lattes and riding on the Segway, and then he's going to sit there and tell the rest of the country, like he's, you know, like one of the people who are really getting hit by the sanctions, yeah, it's okay, y'all can live poor, you know, it's just fine. And he's probably not even affected by it at all. So pretty lame on his end. And also really interesting to hear him say that, because that shows on a certain level the Russians are doing bad, because you don't see anyone in America like me, for example, going, it's okay, everyone, y'all may not be able to afford lunch for your kids anymore at school, but at least we're winning against the Russians in Ukraine. You don't see us saying that. We're sitting here saying, oh, things are pretty okay over here. I mean, like, hell, no one's really even been affected in America. But over in Russia, they're having to sit there and tell people it's okay that we're doing terribly, because at least we're fighting a war and having hundreds of thousands of people die in it. But anyways, with that, we have reached the end of the news tonight, now that we've covered everything. And so now it's time for us to move to Kyiv, and time for me to go type up the President of Ukraine's website to go to the video archive and show y'all the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy here on day 391 of the war. We're only 9 days away from day 400. And it's absolutely unbelievable to think that we've all been here for so long covering this news and watching the nation of Ukraine defend themselves well enough that they control the majority of their country, and we're still here covering the news about it to this day. And so with that, here's the clip.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Щойно говорив з президентом Чилі. Це була хороша розмова. Оновили бачення нашими державами актуальної ситуації в міжнародних відносинах. Я поінформував пана президента про те, як саме Росія продовжує свою агресію. Поінформував і про те, як ми можемо протидіяти російському терору, протидіяти успішно. І найкращий доказ цього – це наш досвід, вже набутий українцями досвід вигнання російських окупантів. Завдяки хоробрості наших воїнів, завдяки підтримці наших партнерів, які ніколи не змиряться із російським прагненням зламати міжнародний правопорядок. Сьогодні Україна почала відзначати першу річницю перших переможних битв повномасштабної війни, боїв на півночі нашої держави, які призвели до бігства окупанта. Саме 21 березня минулого року завершилась битва за Мощун, маленьке село в Київській області, яке стало першим великим кроком нашої держави до перемоги в цій війні. Були й інші такі кроки: битва за Гостомель, бої за Ірпінь, боротьба на Чернігівщині і Сумщині, битва за Зміїний, жорстоке протистояння на півдні України і унікальна наша оборонна операція, яка повернула свободу Харківщині. Ми прийдемо до такого ж результату і в інших активних діях. В героїчній битві за Донбас, в якій неминуче домінуватиме український прапор. В подальшому протистоянні на півдні, яке відновить нормальне українське життя в Приазов'ї, в поверненні нашого Криму, звідки вже почалась міграція найбільш далекоглядних щурів держави-терориста. Наша впевненість у перемозі України, наше бачення вільного майбутнього для нашої держави, український героїзм, який вразив світ, все це народилось саме там, у містах-героях української півночі, українського сходу, українського півдня. У містах героїв, чий характер ані на секунду не підкорився окупанту, навіть тоді, коли окупант прийшов до їхніх домівок. Всі разом ми повертаємо Україні Україну. Всі разом ми захищаємо і наше майбутнє, і нашу гідність, і нашу свободу, і нашу історію. Сьогодні я вшанував героїв битви за Мощун, за Київ, саме там, де буде збудовано меморіал на честь наших воїнів і звичайних мешканців Мощуна, чиї життя були забрані цією жорстокою війною. Сьогодні гість нашої держави, прем'єр-міністр Японії Кішида, почав свій візит в Україну з відвідин Бучі, зі вшанування пам'яті усіх, чиї життя були забрані російським терором. Пан Кішида відвідав стіну пам'яті в Києві біля Михайлівського собору, вшанував наших воїнів, які загинули за Україну. І це дуже важливо, коли глобальні лідери проявляють хоробрість, відвідуючи Україну попри всі ризики. Проявляють повагу до наших людей, які воюють, і не лише за свою державу, за українську незалежність, але й за те, щоб у світі все ж збереглися і діяли цивілізовані правила, цивілізоване життя. Наші переговори з паном Кішидою були доволі продуктивними. Варто зважати на те, що цей візит відбувається у час, коли Японія головує у групі 7 у Великій Сімці демократичних держав. Тож, враховуючи міцність Японії, лідерство цієї держави в Азії у захисті миру і міжнародного порядку, заснованого на правилах, а також відповідальність Японії як головуючої в групі 7, наші сьогоднішні переговори дійсно можуть дати глобальний результат. Ми обговорили і безпекові питання, і політичні, санкційні, і економічні, гуманітарні. Є готовність Японії долучитися до нашої відбудови, бути лідером у цих економічних та інфраструктурних процесах. Але сьогодні я почув також і цілком конкретну готовність Японії працювати разом із нами, щоб ще активніше мобілізувати світ для міжнародного порядку, для захисту від агресії, для захисту від російського терору. Дякую, Японія. Дякую всім, хто допомагає нам захищати свободу і звільняти нашу землю. Слава кожному і кожній, хто зараз в бою. Слава кожному і кожній, хто б'ється за Україну під Бахмутом, Авдіївкою, під Вугледаром та усіх інших гарячих точках передової. Провів сьогодні засідання Ставки. Головне питання – передова. Наші воїни, наші позиції, наше посилення. Доповідали командувачі, главком, розвідка. Одне з питань, якому завжди максимум уваги – це постачання боєприпасів, підтримка від наших партнерів. Очікуємо збільшення постачання саме того, що нам потрібно саме зараз. І ще одне. Хочу особливо відзначити сьогодні 10-ту окрему гірсько-штурмову бригаду, 54-ту та 92-ту окремі механізовані бригади, які б'ються саме на Донбасі. Стійко, сміливо, результативно. Молодці, хлопці. Слава нашим героям. Слава Україні.
With that,
Love Ukraine.
That is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. You actually almost threw me off right there, Matthew, when you did that. I was not expecting it. And it's so loud because the volume was up, so the speech would be loud. But with that, that is the end of tonight's news. While I sit here and try and get myself all put back together. I thank you all so much once again for watching the news segment. We're about to be moving on into our question segment, where we're going to address all the polls that have been put up tonight in between the last question segment and this one. And we're also going to be addressing all of the questions that we can. Of course, we're going to be addressing all of the super chats, and then we'll be addressing all of the live chats that we can. I cannot guarantee that we get to all of them. I don't know if Matthew still has a question shortage, because if he does...
There's no shortage, trust me.
Okay, good. Okay, because we may not be able to get to all of them. It's great to have a lot of questions. We will try and get to as many of them as from the live chat as possible. And also, I would like to make clear, because it seems like we may have a lot of new viewers tonight that are still with us right now, you do not have to send in a super chat to throw in a question. This channel is, the entire premise of it is that it's supposed to be completely free for y'all to watch. Y'all do not have to watch any ads. You may have noticed that when you clicked on the stream, there's not a single ad running on it. And there shouldn't be a single ad running on any of our old streams either. You can go hop on them anytime you want, hop off without ever having to watch an ad. You can ask a question absolutely free as well. These super chats are meant that if you enjoy this channel and you want to support us, you can. And you can also decide how much you want to support us. It can be $1, it can be $500, it can be anything you want. But I want to make that clear while I choke on my spit again, because I never want anyone to feel like they have to pay to do anything on this channel. It's absolutely free, but the super chats do help us to keep it running. And so if you do want to support us, you can. If not, have fun, sit back and enjoy the stream and enjoy the news we're covering and enjoy the Lee Spring Army, because they are absolutely incredible in the live chat. Just look at them go. And there's 30 chats coming in a minute right now, and they're all absolutely interesting. Also, a lot of cool jokes as well. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into our polls. And with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. And y'all have seen the little kofefe happen with the poll. It has been reposted with the correct options. In no way in hell is China ever going to arm Ukraine. The correct answer is China is going to arm Russia. So feel free to vote on this poll. I heard some folks got mixed up on the last one, and our sincere apologies from the LSA. But anyways, we have many polls to address, and the very first one says Ukraine attacked Russia in Crimea, and some experts claim it's a prelude to a frontal assault by Ukraine. And what are your thoughts? 51% said yes, Ukraine is prepping to take Crimea. 9% said unsure. 18% said it's possible. 22% said Ukraine isn't ready for that yet. And I've seen many experts say that Ukraine is prepping to take Crimea. And I would have to say that seems to be what they're leaning toward doing, which we'll have to see how that turns out. I definitely think Ukraine should try to retake it. I only worry about the consequences of doing that because, as we've said multiple times, that could be Russia's red line. But Enforcer, what say you?
I think that it is certainly a buildup and certainly still indicating that the Ukrainians do have their eyes looking southwards for potential offensives into Crimea, and it certainly would not be out of the question at all. There's a lot of potential down there to, I guess you could say, gain a lot out of an offensive in the southern front. So I would certainly say they would probably try and conduct one and maybe even succeed. They will not make it to Crimea all right off the bat, though. You're not going to see them start just south of Zaporizhia and then within days be at Sevastopol or in Dzankhoi or Armyansk. You wouldn't see that. It would probably take 2 offensives over the course of the year to get into Crimea. But at the same time, it does show that they are certainly looking in that direction. And as an American, or really as the Western world for that matter, it would be in the Western world's, NATO, the European Union, the United States, benefit that the Ukrainians do push through Crimea, retake it, and kick out the Black Sea Fleet. If they can do that, hell, our interests are secured at that point. That's really the only thing the West is concerned about on a strategic level, is what will happen to the Black Sea Fleet. And to explain this again, because a lot of people, sometimes people don't really support the war in Ukraine because they don't know that it's within America's interests. And so let me explain real quick why it is in America's interests. As many of y'all know, a lot of oil in the world comes from the Middle East. The United States, I believe, is still the largest producer of oil in the world right now, although a lot of people don't know that. But the next largest producers of oil are all found here in the Middle East. Except for China, I believe. I believe they also... Whatever. Anyways, a lot of oil flows through the Middle East. We'll just say that. And it's a massive economic motivator as to how much the price per barrel of oil is in the world. And the Arabians, well, I guess you could say the countries in the Arabian Peninsula, they control a lot of that price by the amount of oil they release into the market or the amount of oil they hold in the market. The United States has a lot of control on that as well, particularly because we're allied with the Saudis, and the Saudis produce the largest amount of oil there is in the Middle East, but we also have somewhat friendly relations with Iraq and very friendly relations with Kuwait, which also produce large amounts of oil, along with Qatar and the UAE. Now, to keep control of this, or also to expand our control of this and to make sure that oil goes to folks we like and folks we don't like, we have to go down here and we have to be able to control the situation. There's a huge problem, however, that whenever we try and control the situation or turn things in our favor, the Black Sea Fleet shows up. And the problem with the Black Sea Fleet showing up is not that they can actually take on the U.S. Navy. The U.S. Navy will blow away the Black Sea Fleet. The problem is that if we blow them away, we go to war with Russia. And then going to war with Russia, both is an economic sink and also will most likely lead to nuclear war. So we can't really do that normally.
But Enforcer, China and Russia today, they agreed they'll never unleash nukes, though. They said they'll never do it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, right.
But the thing is that the Black Sea Fleet shows up, and they just are there. Their presence there demands that we go to the diplomatic table and we make concessions to the Russians. That's why the Syrian civil war has lasted so long. That's why right now the Iranians are openly hostile against the United States, and there's not really a lot we can do about that, unless we want to get into a war, and we generally want to avoid a war. So to be able to get a larger control over the Middle East and a larger control over the oil supply and the cost of it, we have to make sure, as the United States, that the Black Sea Fleet is gone. We want that thing out of there. And if it's kicked out of Crimea, I know a lot of people say Novorossiysk could support the Black Sea Fleet. I've tried to look into that. It appears it can't, because the port infrastructure just is not large enough for the Black Sea Fleet and for it to also remain a commercial port. They would have to go somewhere else, and they would probably have to make the long trek all the way up to St. Petersburg, Arkhangelsk, or even all the way over to Vladivostok to keep that fleet existing where it could be used out of an actual naval port. So if the Black Sea Fleet's gone, there is no chance for the Russians to send a reactionary force anywhere into the area that could force us into the diplomatic table. Then we control the Middle East. And we largely decide what goes on here and what doesn't go on here, and then that gives us a lot of control over the oil prices, and through those oil prices, we can make transportation, and I guess you could say the economy, stimulated here in the West a lot more, and then we can also start to threaten countries that are our rivals, like China, with the rising price of oil. So with that, I hope that explains why it's in our interest to do this, because a lot of people look at the interest directly in Ukraine, but it's not just Ukraine. This war actually has implications on an international scale. That would be to America's advantage to make sure that the Black Sea Fleet's gone out of Crimea. The Russians also want Crimea for that reason. They also understand that as well, and that's why they're always threatening massive repercussions if anything gets close to retaking Crimea or kicking the Black Sea Fleet out of there. So that's the entire reason why this war is being fought, is really because of that. And also Ukraine being a part of the Western world, that provides a whole other market for us to get involved in, which is a money-making opportunity. And on top of that, it also grows our sphere of influence right into striking distance of Volgograd and Moscow, which is also a huge advantage considering that the Russians are our rival, and if a conventional war ever breaks out, we will be at a huge advantage if we're able to get Ukraine. So that's why the United States is supporting Ukraine, and that's also why we want them to retake Crimea. So I would certainly back them up from an American perspective in trying to retake Crimea. Will the Russians threaten to nuke them over it? Maybe. I mean, like, that's a very large possibility considering what's at stake here, but we'll just have to wait and see. Until then, I say go full speed ahead and try and retake Crimea. So with that, I hope that does answer that question, well, that poll fairly well, and I hope I addressed why the United States supports Ukraine from a strategic perspective as best I can. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next poll says Zelensky's office says that they are still reaching out to Xi for a meeting, but communication has gone silent. And what are your thoughts? 38% said end the attempts now, China is the enemy. 36% said Xi pulled a fast one on Zelensky. 11% said unsure, and 15% said, they will meet eventually. Now, one thing is for sure to me, I've been saying this very adamantly, and I know there's people that disagree with me. I think the attempt should be ended immediately, and Ukraine should not be meeting with China. That's going to sow distrust with the West by doing that, and that is not a good idea. The West has made over a $75 billion investment into Ukraine, and they can trust that we're going to be longtime allies with them, and there's no need to run to China for that. I would say if he pulled a fast one, I don't know about that because they might eventually meet, but it's kind of weird that communication has gone completely silent all of a sudden. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that it is it's not really smart to talk to the Chinese anymore. They're making it very clear because the only reason Zelensky talking to China can be justified is that he's trying to persuade them that not supporting Russia is in their benefit. That's the only reason there's worth talking to the Chinese. They're never going to support Ukraine. That's clear. So now that we're seeing that the Chinese are pretty adamant on backing the Russians, there's really no point in Zelensky talking to China anymore. So I would just cut the communications with the Chinese and just leave it at that. Because if they're already going to support the Russians, there's no point in talking to them. There's no way you're going to, I guess you could say, negotiate them out of that. There's nothing there. There's really no point in talking to them. So I would say to cut communications with them since they've already made it very clear that they're going to be supporting the Russians as of today. So with that, I hope that does address that poll fairly well. And also, I forgot another thing about the strategic concerns with Ukraine. and this is bringing it really into the international scale. Not only do we control the price of oil in the Arabian Peninsula, we also are able to have a massive stake in the sphere of influence that China is trying to grow around the Indian Ocean. The Chinese will never be able to pull the Indians to their side. The Indians have a lot of things that draw them away from China. So that's why you see a lot of Western countries vying for India's allegiance or alliance with them. That's why you see that Modi, who's the leader of India, has been invited to the United States by pretty much every single president for the last 12 years, because we're all trying to get him on the American and the Western side, because through that we can stop the Chinese sphere of influence from growing around the Indian Ocean. And also, if we control the Middle East and we get to control a lot of what happens there, we control this part of that sphere. And so the Chinese may be able to control the African coast. Yes, they will be able to do that because we're really not doing anything there to stop that. But they will not be able to control India, maybe Pakistan. Iran will most likely be on their side, but they will not be able to control the Middle East either. So we completely thwart this growth of China's sphere of influence around the Indian Ocean as well. So you can actually see right there that stopping the Russians from being able to keep the Black Sea Fleet has major international strategic implications, that it would be in America's benefit to support Ukraine, because the cost of the Russians being able to keep that fleet and the Chinese sphere of influence growing is more than any amount that we can really give to the Ukrainians. It would cost us trillions over the course of just a year, in a future like that. So with that, I hope that does, once again, revisit that and address that a little bit better, because I completely forgot about that part and the direction that was supposed to be going in. But with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right. And real quick, I have to add real quick that I understand that Ukraine might be a little leery that the United States might abandon them post-war, and they're concerned about rebuilding their country after the war's over. The thing is, it doesn't matter what political party is in charge at that point. Private companies are going to come in and make guarantees to help rebuild the country, because our investment firms want to get a good return, and they see a very burgeoning market in Ukraine, and they're going to exploit that to Ukraine's advantage as well. So Ukraine really doesn't need to be running to Russia to look for investment, because that's completely unnecessary.
And also, real quick, to back that up with some statistics, you can see that after, we don't even have the Estonian GDP until 1995, but you can see that once former Soviet or former Warsaw Pact nations entered the Western market and started to enter the Western sphere, you can see that their economies started to skyrocket in GDP. The Ukrainians never have entered the Western economic sphere, although they've been leaning towards the direction of the West. And so it would be safe to assume that once this war is over and they do enter the Western sphere, we'll probably see an economic boom, much like the Polish had after they left the Warsaw Pact. So that's another thing to think about right there, and that's a huge reason why you would see a lot of private companies coming forward to invest in Ukraine, because they would be imagining a similar situation as to the Polish or the Estonians had after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So with that, hope that adds on to what Matthew said there, because that was a really good point. And with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right, and the next poll says, the U.S. says it is now flying drones further away from Crimea to avoid Russian provocation, and what are your thoughts? So apparently the United States did reassess the drone routes, and they determined they were flying too close, even though it was in international waters. 39% said the U.S. cowered to Russia, 14% said unsure, 21% said it's good for de-escalation, and 26% said the U.S. did what it had to do. And on this one, I really doubt that the Russians are going to go to world war over a drone flying in the Black Sea. I think it looks like the U.S. did cower to Russia, which is not a good precedent to set. And we'll have to see how this turns out and what results from it. But Enforcer, what say you?
We sit there, we don't want to escalate the situation, and then we send a nuclear bomber to do some orbits on the Russian border near St. Petersburg. I think we're de-escalating some areas and escalating in others, because obviously this is a pretty clear message what the bomber did in Estonia, and then at the same time we're trying to make it look like we're de-escalating down here. So I think this is kind of like faux. This is kind of like fake de-escalating, because in other areas we're making sure to remind them that what's happening with the drone down here is only a small thing, and there's a lot more going on, hence the nuclear bomber. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right. And our last one here says, today, the U.S. rapidly and suddenly, that was redundant, decided to speed up tank and missile system deliveries. And what are your thoughts? 46% said the U.S. simply sped it up, nothing else to it. 6% said unsure. 38% said China is going to arm Russia. And 9% said Russia is going to mount a big offensive. And once again, I think it's the fact that China is probably going to arm Russia, as the NATO chief alluded to, that the U.S. has suddenly found a way to get that equipment there faster, which they should have been doing already. But, you know, good thing they did it now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that we simply sped it up, probably due to what China is doing with Russia. So we're either trying to send a message or speed things up in case things get worse. So I would actually have to go with the 38% that said China is going to arm Russia, because I think that may have been what they were thinking about when they made that decision, but at the same time, it's more of a precaution. It's not a definitive thing that's happening yet. But I'm sure we'll probably hear about that in the coming days and see if it is going to happen in terms of armed support to Russia or not. So with that, I hope that does.
You know that the Russian people are not going to keep that secret for long. Whatever was in that agreement they signed today, it'll be leaked in a few days.
Oh, I bet you money. I'll put money on that the Russians will say something like that. Because the first time, China was like, "Oh, I love you, Russia, with your sweet, honey, we're going to give you weapons." And then the Russians turn around and went, "Hey, guys, they're giving us guns." And the Chinese like, "Shh, you weren't supposed to say that, you idiots." And then like a week and a half later, then they come back and go, "Oh, honey," and then they give them more guns. So anyways.
Yeah, apparently that first leak didn't bother them too much for them to come back and, you know, sign a pretty large agreement.
Yeah, I mean, like, they were only scared away for a week and a half, 10 days, and then they came back. I guess you could say, Matthew, that China left, spreaded them out, and then pumped iron for 10 days, and then came back and made the agreement. So with that,
spreaded them out.
Spreaded them out.
Spreaded?
Wait, hang on, Matthew.
Oh man,
spreaded them out. Spreaded it out. And so with that,
call them out.
Call them out. Call them out. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that poll and on into the question segment.
All right. And up first from our super chats, we have another $100 donation from Mark, Slava, Ukraine. He says, "I'm wondering whether Bakhmut is intended to keep Russia stressed and busy while Ukraine prepares their southern counterattacks. I'd carve off the nuclear plant and head for Crimea."
And I thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Mark, first off. And second off, I would like to say that Bakhmut is probably intended to keep the Russians busy. There's really nothing else you can get out of Bakhmut rather than stacking up Russian bodies and then also just keeping them there and keeping their attention focused there. That's really the only thing to get out of it. So I would say that that's probably maybe a secondary aim of the Battle of Bakhmut, is to keep them occupied in that area and keep all of their resources diverted there, while Ukrainian resources are also sent to Bakhmut but also diverted elsewhere in preparation for an offensive. That may be what they're doing, and I would not doubt that whatsoever, because it would be a smart move to distract them in one place and then do something big in another. So with that, I thank you so much for the massive amount of support, Mark. I would have to say that's actually quite observant and probably what they're doing. And with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well. Thank you once again for the huge amount of support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Rob Iceman. I believe it's Iceman, his ICX man. I remember he said what it was before. I think it's Iceman. But Rob puts in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, Rob, for that support. He says approximately China's 22 GDP is about 75% of the USA's GDP. China's military budget is 30% of the USA's military budget. Why? When you understand that, China's help will be an effing joke. Prayers to my fellow vets dealing with PTSD. Be safe, brothers, and stay in the fight.
And thank you for the support, Rob. And I would have to agree with you. It will probably be a bit of a joke. They would have to support. One thing is clear. With that kind of budget, the Chinese military budget. Let's see here. 1.19 trillion. Oh, but how much is that in billions? In 2020, the budget was, well, in 2021, the budget was increased to 209 billion. which is quite small compared to the United States. It's, of course, 33% of it. It's not big. And you have to remember, this continuous input of about $209 billion a year means that their war industry total is far less than that. Like, the production of ammunition and artillery per year has to be much lower than the United States can afford. And also there has to be a lot less factories for it because there's no money there to produce a massive amount. So I would have to say that it would probably be a joke, especially if their support's going to be in terms of artillery or tanks, because the Chinese will be looking at how long it will take for them to replenish those numbers based off their current military spending, and it will take quite a long while, especially with this kind of funding and these kinds of numbers. It's nowhere close to the United States in terms of support. I believe we actually said this last night as well, but I'm not expecting a lot from Chinese support. It just will not be able to compare to the West. It'll probably take them like 5 years to be able to up their military budget high enough and also be able to provide enough support to actually be able to combat the West's support to Ukraine. So with that, I would certainly agree with you, Rob, on that statement right there. It's just not comparable. The GDPs are getting a little bit closer, though, but the military support just wouldn't be comparable due to their current military spending and probably how big their military industry is. So with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well, and also hope the veterans do stay okay out there. There's a decent amount of veterans that watch this channel. I believe like a quarter of our viewers are veterans, and to all of y'all, I hope y'all are staying safe out there, and I hope y'all have been enjoying tonight's show as well. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Rob, for the support. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and also, just a quick plug for it, if you haven't joined our Twitter, please go over and peep the Twitter. We post news as it happens, and it's growing very fast. And I see the Enforcer is going to show you on the screen, which is even better.
Peter, the Twitter's here.
Oh, that's good.
Peter.
Hey, 369.
Hey, nice.
Nice.
Oh, man. Oh, look at this. Massive economic agreement. Nice. Interesting. Oh, look at shaking a hand. Very nice. No chin line. No chin line. No chin.
He does look like that T-Rex. Even the real one looks like the T-Rex.
Oh, man.
Man, we're on a hit list for sure now.
Oh, yeah, we are. Look, a tank.
Oh, very crispy. Oh, very muddy, crispy. Too.
Very muddy. I'm telling you what, man. Oh, man. Let's look at this one. Oh, nice.
Oh, Patriots.
Nice. Patriots. Very nice. Very nice. Is that a Russian right there? He's got a Russian.
No, that's white and red.
Wait a minute, I think that's it could be a Slovakian.
Yeah, it's definitely not a Russian.
I was gonna be like,
if the Russian has a U.S. Patriot, that's pretty tough.
Because I was looking at that patch. It's a Slovakian patch. Because if I remember correctly, flag of Slovakia. Yeah, it's the flag of Slovakia. Because you can kind of see the little crest that's right there on that patch, but you can hardly see it. So with that. And here we go. I see everyone putting in different stuff. Polish, Netherlands. It's like, no, it's a Slovakian. But anyways, with that, make sure to peep the Twitter.
Peter, peep the Twitter.
But still, with that, we're on to the next one. And make sure to check it out.
All right. And up next, also everybody's saying it's Poland. And yes, I believe you all are correct. It's Polish. And we love the Poles. We love the Poles.
Wait, hang on, though. Whoa, wait a minute. We gotta stop this right here. Gotta stop this right here, Peter. Because we go to that, we look at it again. The flag, like that's not Poland because there's blue there.
That's the Poles.
No, there's some blue there, man. Like if I can zoom that in, you can see the blue.
That's just white and red to me.
No, that's white, blue, and red. Maybe someone can zoom it in. But that's white, blue, and red. I'm telling you. And there's a little symbol right there. That is definitely a Slovakian. It's got to be a Slovakian. Put up a poll, Matthew. Call them out. Call them out. Is it Slovakian, Polish, or Netherlands? Let's pull up Slovakian camo. Slovakian camo. Images. Whoa, hey, whoa, that's not the kind of camo we're looking for. Let's see. Hell, that does kind of look like him.
Hey, a tough guy, huh?
Oh, yeah. I'm wearing a suit under here, huh? Let me wait. Slovakian hat.
Mark's out here throwing out those roasts. He said math and color challenge.
Ah, come on. Oh, come on. I'm telling
Oh,
you.
that Slovakian flag. They need to a little bit change that a little bit.
But yeah, it's right there though. That is a Slovakian flag.
No. That's a pole.
Where the hell was this picture taken? We're gonna have to find this out. Where in the world did this picture come from? Patriot Missile Defense System. Let's go to images. Let's see if we can find it. Here it is.
I ripped it off from somewhere. I can't remember. Oh, it's Reuters.
Let's see. This is in Slovakia. I was right. This is Slovakia. That's a Slovakian. It's Slovakia. That is not Poland. I saw the colors. I'm not color challenged. I'm not color blind. This photo...
Are you sure it's not a pole in Slovakia, though?
Let's see. It says near Zvolin, Slovakia. That is a Slovakian. On God. That is a Slovakian.
Oh, now everybody's switching it up. Now they're saying Czech.
Czech? Y'all better check yourselves. Y'all better check yourselves real quick. That is a Slovakian. I got it right. Everyone acted like I was crazy until that picture said Slovakia. And now CFA says, you're 100% wrong. That is Slovakia. The picture was taken in Slovakia. Like, what the hell? It's literally Slovakian. You can see it right there.
Dang, and then Chip comes in and throws the curveball. He says the whole thing's a fake Photoshop.
Oh, man. And now, wait a minute, look, the poll is changing. Now everyone's putting in votes for Slovakia. Points to Slovakia. But anyways, I'm glad I got that one right. I swore I was going crazy there and I was seeing colors that were not there. It is in Slovakia. Those are Slovakian. So with that, we're now going to...
Andrew gets 1 point.
1 point to Gryffindor, or whatever the hell they used to say. But anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next one.
All right, and that was a hell of an introduction for the next one. Up next, we have a $50 super chat from KG, who says, the reason why the US, UK, among others, are speeding up weapons is because they saw Russia down a Reaper in the Black Sea. Russia is on another level of F around and find out, and countries are responding.
Well, I thank you so much for the support, KG. And maybe they are doing it for that reason. We are sending 2 carrier task groups, well, I believe carrier fleets, to the area of the Black Sea right now. So that might be the reason why, because that's also escalatory, and also the B-52 flying near the Estonian border was a little escalatory. So that may be what we're doing. But it may also be because of the Chinese-Russian meeting. In fact, it may be because of many reasons that they were able to justify speeding this up and getting the weapons there faster. But that is probably a very good point as well, KG, and I thank you so much for the support. And I believe the Russians are on another level of screwing around and finding out. I believe they've screwed a little too much, and they're about to be finding out a little too well. So with that, thank you once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well. And we are on...
What's this math equation? F around plus find out equals get wrecked.
Let's see. F plus around equals find out. But anyways, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again for support and giving us an interesting idea. Actually, I would say that's a really good reason why they're doing that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Jesus UCSB. NAFO is in the house. He puts in a $50 donation and says, "Hola, I'm finally back on R&R. This tanker has been bonking Russians and watching Otani strike out Otani. Congratulations to Japan for giving Ukraine aid today. Very nice. LSA Army Enforcer for Presidente. Viva Mexico."
And thank you so much for your support for my bid to presidency. I hope that when I explained earlier the strategic implications to the United States about the war in Ukraine, that it sounded like it made sense and actually sounded logical. If you wanted to hear stuff explained to you like that at any given time by the office of the President of the United States, make sure to vote for me in 2040, in case if you aren't already going to vote for me in 2040, because that's how I'll explain everything. We'll just break it all down and say the reason why things are being done and the reason why we support stuff. Because nobody in the government, nobody in the U.S. government has ever explained why we support Ukraine well, rather than it's just the right thing to do. And, you know, I'm going to say this. it's great to support the right thing to do, and of course this is a great thing to support. But we don't always support people who are in the right. You know, look around the world, and you can see weird things going on, like with the Tamil Tigers in India, which are a terrorist group. We don't go and support the Indians and help them to defeat the Tamil Tigers because there's really nothing for us to gain from that. So we just leave them alone and let the Indians try and sort them out. You know, and I feel like that is an important thing to bring up and talk to with people, is the realistic implications and the real reason why we're doing things, instead of giving everyone a smoke and mirror show or no answer at all. And that's what everyone's always done. Well, not everyone has always done. That's what everyone does in the modern day, but you could go back to, hell, the 70s, the 60s, and earlier than that, and things like this were just simply explained as they were, like I'm trying to do. So if you like that, make sure to vote for me. Anyways, I do thank you once again for supporting my bid for president, and good to hear that you're on R&R, Jesus. Being on Twitter and a part of the NAFO or the Lee Spring Army is tiring business. Talking about bobcats, slamming Russian bots, you know, getting them. It's tough, and so it's good to know that you're back on a break. You're good. You're having some R&R here, and I hope that you've enjoyed tonight's stream and that it was entertaining, it was informational, and very interesting to hear. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Jesus. I hope we addressed that one fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right. And up next, we have another $50 super chat from KG. And thank you very much for that support. He says, Operation Defang stands giving air rights to the USA and well, let's see here. That's where I've never seen before. A simultaneous launch, Rapid Dragon, JASSM ER nuke tipped. Thanks, Russia opting out of START, taking out every known nuke position in Russia. K. Thanks, bye.
And thank you for the support, KG.
That last part threw me off a little bit.
Oh, okay. So the first one, because I saw the first one in the live chat, I was like, are they like, is this a continued segment? It isn't. And I thank you for the support, KG. And I would say that, let's see, giving air rights to USA. I don't know what the air rights parts mean. I don't know if that means air rights over the entire world, air rights in a nuclear war. I'm not really sure what that's in relation to. But I would say that it's always important from an American perspective, and of course, from an American perspective also means from a Western perspective, because the American perspective does benefit Europe, because Europe and the United States works hand in hand. Well, really, it just benefits anyone in the Western sphere. So if you're a country that is in the Western sphere that has friendly relations with the United States, it benefits you for the United States to have supremacy. Like, for example, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, because the United States does the heavy lifting and ensures economic prosperity for everyone involved. So it's important for the United States to keep an upper edge. For that reason, I would agree with you. It would be very important to do something like that. But at the same time, it's always very risky and very tough to talk about nuking another country, because a nuclear weapon carries a lot of weight, not just in its damaging abilities, but in its diplomatic effect. And so it's pretty tough to say that it would be good to nuke Russia for any reason, even to take out their nuclear arsenal. But still, an interesting point, an interesting concept, I would say. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope we addressed that comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, Melissa Smith sent me a zoomed up photo of the fella standing next to the Patriot battery. And it is, you're definitely right, Enforcer. This confirmed it. It is a Slovakian, I believe.
It is a Slovakian. Slovakians have a pretty cool little country, actually. They separated from they separated from Czechoslovakia at the end of the Cold War, when Czechoslovakia broke away from the Soviet Union. They actually agreed. This was actually really interesting. One of the few instances that a country just gave up land voluntarily and peacefully. The Czechs and the Slovaks just agreed that they were two culturally separate peoples and there was no point in being in the same country. So Czechoslovakia disbanded and formed into the Czech Republic, which is now I believe it's Czechia, and then also Slovakia. Very interesting and a very neat country as far as their history and what they have. They have some interesting natural beauty in the Carpathians, which I'll try and show you real quick. Just to give the Slovakians a plug. but this is what Slovakia looks like.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty nice.
Soviet sound.
It's the Soviet Republic. A bald bankrupt would never travel here, though, because, you know, there's no one vying to kill him. Like, there's no one trying with a target on his head here. He would just be walking through going, this is kind of lame. But still a nice country, neat place, I would say. So with that,
is there anyone that would like to take me into custody and question me?
so that way I can chill for you. I'll chill for free. Only you have to put on cuffs. We'll put cuffs on me. But with that,
that's different.
well, I mean, but anyways, we're on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $25 super chat from Rumpelstiltskin, who always solves that Morse code almost every single night, and thank you for that support. He says, Old Guard, Mike Hading, production manager of CNC manufactured high-precision metal/plastic parts requests, personal source to tap for ammunition production for the Ukraine war effort without cold calling.
Well, I thank you for the support. Do you know what that means, though, Matthew? Because for some reason, the way it was written, the way it was read, for some reason, I think I'm missing what it means.
Let's see. He wants to, the way I interpret it, he wants to volunteer his CNC machining services to help produce ammunition for the Ukraine war effort, and he wants to know who he can get in touch with without having to cold call everyone.
Dang, sadly, I wouldn't know. I don't have any connections in the arms manufacturing industry like that, so unfortunately, I don't really know who you would call for that. But I'm sure some people in the Leaf Spring Army may be able to help you out with that. If somehow you are able to do that, I beg of you, please send me a supply of 308 and also 556, because that stuff is expensive. Like, it's very expensive. I wish I could find it cheaper. But I guess the only way of getting it cheaper is to hand load it. But then at the same time, you have to have intact casings for that, and that's about as hard to find as everything else, and primers and all that stuff. That's all hard to find these days. Everything's expensive in the ammunition and gun world. But still, I wish you the best of luck on that, but sadly, I have no idea where to even begin with that. So with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does kind of address why we don't really have an answer for that fairly well, because I don't really know a lot about that area. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
All right. And up next, we have a super chat from, let's see here, Super Bunker 9000, also a member of NAFO, who puts in a $25 donation and says, Igor, and chat question, please.
And thank you so much for the support. And also, Igor! And of course, thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. You were fantastic, Super Bunker 9000. I believe you actually were our first NAFO member who ever became a dual citizen of the Leaf Spring Army. And I've got to thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And we'll be making sure to get to a live chat. Also, Doug Burnham said, how much 5.56 do you want? that's a great question.
Oh?
Matthew's the one who uses 5.56. I use larger calibers. I actually have... let's see, a 30-06, a 308, a 45 ACP, a 3040, and a 7.62x39, which is that AK. So really, I don't know how much Matthew would want, but I would love some 308. Like I sound like I'm on a shopping order here, Matthew. I would love some 308, some 7.62, because oh my God, it's gotten so expensive. It's like $1.10 a round for both of them.
I was just thinking that would be cool if anybody wanted to donate some, but the only catch is this though. What if it's like loaded with a hot round to like try to get us or something, like from like a Russian?
Oh, I mean, you know, that would be the risk that's run. I guess you would have to send it in like the original manufacturer's box, you know? But then again, I don't know. Maybe you could slip a hot round in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like you know, you go out there and shoot the 308, meet God. Meet God, one shot. I mean, hell, Kentucky Ballistics almost did that one time with that hot 50 caliber round. And also, I know people are about to go, hot load. Oh, yo, be quiet. Shit now. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next. But I got to tell y'all, if y'all ever get into the whole gun thing, if you're into the gun thing, you know it's expensive. If you haven't gotten into the gun thing yet, oh my God, I just don't know like what's up with ammo prices now. Someone could make a killing if they opened up an ammunition factory right now and started selling just 5 cents cheaper than the competition. You could make a killing. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Chip Kerwan, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Chip, for that support. He says, Enforcer Bro Law. Let's see here. So he sends in apparently a motion that was filed in some kind of case. I'm not really sure. Looks like Department of Justice. I think I know which case you're referring to here, because I do follow a lot of those cases. And I think this one is going to be political, if I have the case correct. So sadly, I don't think we can comment on it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say if it is political, and I'm going to have to take Matthew's judgment on this one because I try and remove myself from politics so much that I really don't know what's going on in American politics right now. Point I do that is so that way I never have the inclination of saying anything that is political, since we avoid that like the plague. I've heard that there is another channel out there that is going political overtime, and we don't do that at all. We give politics as wide a berth as possible because we're only here to support Ukraine. That is the entire premise of the channel. I don't care what your political affiliation is, as long as you just support Ukraine. And that's really all that matters to us.
Jump in head first to politics, man. Come on, call them out. Call them out.
Come on, man. I have to start bashing people who support Ukraine because they don't agree with my domestic politics, man. Come on, man. Oh, you support Ukraine? Oh, yeah. How do I divide you up into little pieces? Also, Bilbo said, so-and-so? No. I don't know if they do that. I don't know. And Avdiivka said, "Which channel is he referring to?" Well, if you peep the Twitter, if you peep the Twitter at all on the Ukraine war area, you would know. And I, like we were, Matthew and me were actually talking about that off camera today. Like he was like, "Dang man, did you see this? Like this guy is going off." And I was like, and like I saw him, and I was like, "Dang, he really is." I know, like we avoid politics like the plague, so we're looking at it. We're like, that's just dumb, because you're going to take all of the pro-Ukrainian people and you're just going to take a chunk of them and you're just going to cast them out and make them outsiders. So there goes like
we know where his priorities lie.
Yeah, who knows how many people you're alienating because you don't agree with their domestic politics in the United States. I was like, that's just so that's stupid. Like there's no other way to put that. You're going to take people who support the same thing you do and alienate them and isolate them for something. It's like that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. But with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. But sadly, we can't cover that case because if it is political, we'll be getting involved in politics, and we avoid that. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address the channel fairly well. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. I had a little Freudian slip there, and with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, so up next we have a $20 super chat from Plant Lady. And Plant Lady said she had a question, but I didn't see it in the live chat though. So if you have one for me, please send it again and tag @EnforcerMatt in your message, and I will return to this whenever I see it pop up. But thank you very much for the support. And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Curtis Horn, who says, if you line up the shot right, you could have taken out that entire 40-mile traffic jam from early in the war with one of those depleted uranium rounds with the over penetration, right? Lol.
Probably going to take it out a literal mile of that thing, because it's just nothing but some steel in the engine blocks and then nothing else. So yeah, I mean, I guess a depleted uranium round could have literally traveled a mile as long as it was able to keep up a decent path. As long as it wasn't dropping too much, it could have taken out a mile of a convoy if it was in a straight line. And so I would certainly agree with you on that. And I guess I kind of get the point. It isn't really that overkill. What's the point of overkill? You know what I mean? Come on. I mean, no, you can't. I guess you can't have enough overkill, can you? So with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And people are asking for Rodney. We did Rodney a little bit, but just a little bit. And also I actually see a lot of people saying another, let's see. Oh, wait a minute. Someone actually knew who I was talking about. White Lightning 777. I think he knows who we're talking about. Some of y'all are calling out another channel, though, that we've had on our show before. I don't really know if they're doing that or not, so I'm not talking about them, you know, because I don't know if they're doing it or not to even mention it. I just know about this other guy. The channel that shan't be named, as White Lightning 777 put it, which is a good way to put it. And we were like we're completely blown away. It made no sense. You know, because I'm just gonna let me give you all an example. Let's say we all like chicken, right? You know, we love eating chicken. It's great food. It's good stuff. You know, no one could go wrong with chicken. All right, so 10 of us sit down at a table. So they go, boy, this chicken's great. But how many of y'all like Coca-Cola? And then some of y'all say, I like Coca-Cola. And then some of y'all, not so much. What the hell's wrong with y'all? You stupid or something? You don't like Coca-Cola? Well, you can't like chicken either. Get the hell out of my table. That's like what this guy is doing. It's like, that doesn't have anything to do with chicken. If they like chicken, just keep everyone at the table because they like chicken. And if they like Sprite or Pepsi or something, that's fine. Who cares? We're just caring about if they like chicken or not. That's like the same principle here. If you support Ukraine, that's all I care about. That's it. I don't care about anything else. As long as you support Ukraine, that's fine by me. Everything else, you know, so with that, hope that addressed that again fairly well, just in case anyone was wondering. No, it's not. It's not Funker. I'll say that clearly. It's not Funker. We're talking about another channel. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and we have yet another super chat from KG, who puts in another 50. And thank you very much, KG, who says, third clarification, nothing... Wait a minute, let me see if I got to the second one first. I know there's another one. Let's see. He has a lot of clarification. Let's see here. Let me try to read them in order. The first one we have here from KG is a 20, who says, to clarify... JASSM ER is a 1,000-mile capable, independently fired stealth cruise missile, which is terrain hugging and will not enable early warning for strategic nuke launch, but nuke tipped. Thousands going.
And let's see, and then there's further clarification, so could we get that one as well?
And further clarification, JASSM ER AGM 158 is now adopted as Rapid Dragon, and C-130, C-17, B-52 can send multiple hundreds before Russia can even blink. Their stealth, they would not know and find about Ruskies.
AGM 158. I have to pull this thing up now. How many of them do we have? Damn, these things cost 1.6 million? Wait, hang on. 1.35 million apiece. Is a low observable, so it will have a cross signature. It's just that it won't be a big one. It'll be like, you know, I don't know, maybe like a large bird or maybe even a small ultralight aircraft. Standoff air-launched cruise missile developed by Lockheed Martin for the United States Armed Forces is a large, stealthy, long-range weapon with a 1,000-pound armor-piercing warhead. It has completed testing and entered the U.S. Air Force in 2009 and entered foreign service in Australia, Finland, and Poland in 2014. An extended-range version of the missile, the AGM-1858B, JASSM ER, Joint Air-to-Surface Standoff Missile Extended Range, entered service in 2014. By September 2016, Lockheed Martin had delivered 2,000 total JASSMs, comprising both variants to the United States Air Force. So let's look at the stats. The engine. It's pretty interesting. Operational range is, on the ER, it's out to 575 miles, which can strike deep into Russia, but not all the way into like the Ural Mountain range area from where that B-52 was. And it also doesn't really tell us the speed. Do we have any stats on the speed here? Sadly, it looks like we don't. I don't know how fast this thing can fly, considering it has, let's see, considering it has somewhat fairly large wings, I would assume it's not going that fast. It would probably be subsonic if I had to take a guess at its speed. Let me know if I'm correct on that. But it does look like one hell of a missile. I don't think I see where they are nuclear tipped. I'll take your word on it though, KG, because it sounds like you know a lot about these missiles. And we probably could use these to take out a good amount of their nuclear inventory before it could even be used. Oh wait a minute, someone said it says subsonic. Wait, hang on. Is it long range? Completed. Let's see. Cancel it. I'm not reading subsonic. Sadly, I don't. Wait. Oh, subsonic. Yeah, it is subsonic. Sorry, y'all. I didn't even read that. And I guessed it was subsonic, so I was right. Looking at the way it was built, I was like, it looks subsonic. Okay, thank God it was, because I was about to get flamed for that if it wasn't. But But yeah, it's a pretty neat little system, I'd say. I wonder if it could take out Russian nuclear sites, considering it's almost stealth. And if it can, oh buddy, do we have one hell of a weapon. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, KG, and clarifying this for us. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you for sharing that with me, because I didn't even know we had a weapon like that in our arsenal.
All right. And up next, we have that third clarification from KG, who put in that 50 and said, nothing Russia or China can beat Rapid Dragon. If they do something stupid, we'll just defang them. We don't want to do that first, though. We're the good guys.
And thank you so much for the support, KG. And now I understand what you're saying. Now that we're talking about that weapon with the whole defanging thing is just screwing them over. You know, the Chinese sit there, Matthew. We are strong and invincible. And then within 6 hours, their entire air defense system is gone, and the skies are just owned by the United States. I mean, like, yeah,
that would be a defanging, I guess you could say.
I guess you could say we're declawing them in a way, since they're a dragon. But anyways, I would certainly agree with you. That is actually really bizarre to think we have a weapon that could actually do that, and there's no way the Chinese would pick up on that until they started blowing up and destroying the installations. Then they would be like, oh god, we're getting destroyed here, and it's too late to really do anything about. So with that, I thank you so much once again for support, KG. I would certainly agree with you. That is incredibly good to know that we do have that kind of ability, because that would give us the ultimate advantage at the very start of the war, is being able to have air superiority that is almost uncontested. So with that, thank you once again. I hope I addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and we have yet another super chat from KG, who puts in a 50. Absolutely crazy support tonight, and thank you very much, KG, for that. Yeah. He says, look up Rapid Dragon. A C-17 can deploy 100 by itself. Their air defenses would be exhausted, and we have thousands of them.
Rapid Dragon. I think we've seen this before, but how does it work?
I think we have.
Let's see. Let's go to. Let's see. There's got to be a company out there that's made a video for this thing showing how it works. Dang it, it looks like they don't have a sales pitch for this one. Maybe, this is from the Air Force Research Lab. Let's see if it's an actual government YouTube channel.
It's Lockheed, I think.
Yeah, this research was funded by the U.S. government. Okay, this video was also probably made by the U.S. government, so let's check it out.
Palletized munitions enable mobility aircraft to deploy cruise missiles, promising to provide a near-term means to increase capacity of fires. A modular deployment system offers a flexible payload configuration to meet mission requirements, with a 6-pack configuration for C-130 deployment and a 9-pack for C-17s. An onboard control module enables the missiles and battle management system to communicate, so missions and targets can be updated while the aircraft is airborne. Palletized munitions are compatible with standard airlift inventory systems. They provide a roll-on, roll-off capability with no aircraft modifications. The Air Force Strategic Development Planning and Experimentation Office, Air Force Futures, and Lockheed Martin are partnering with Air Mobility Command and Air Force Special Operations Command to conduct flight tests. First up are in-flight jettison tests to demonstrate safe deployment from a C-17 and a C-130.
Dang.
Followed by live-fire demonstrations for both aircraft, the first by the end of 2021.
Oh, man.
Oh, God.
Palletized munitions are a potential force multiplier that enable combatant commanders to strike from more airfields and engage more targets, while offering mobility aircraft and crews a rapid transition back to primary missions. Rapid Dragon, bringing more mass to the fight.
More mass?
Man!
What happens to the crate, though, when it, like, launches everything?
I guess it just falls to the ground or the seafloor or something, I guess. You know, it doesn't really look like there's a way to recover them, but man, Matthew, look at that mass. I mean,
man,
like,
Lockheed's always bringing more mass to the battle. We got to give them credit.
Dude, man, I mean, like, they need to back that mass up. You know what I mean? But But man, dude, every day I gotta thank you all for being so knowledgeable about almost every weapon the United States has. Every single day, I'm more and more impressed with everything we have. I feel like the United States is honestly overkill with a lot of the weapons that we have, but it's a good overkill. There's no such thing as too much overkill for the United States. And this is wild. I don't know what kind of range those little cruise missiles have, though, because it didn't show them having any kind of rocket motor or anything like that. So I don't know if they're like glide bombs more so, or if they're actually able to, I don't know, propel themselves. But if they are able to propel themselves, the concept of having a single C-130 dropping 12 of those things, and then if it's a I guess you could say a squad of four of them, they're dropping 48 of these things at a time. Imagine that, man. They have 48 missiles launched by just 4 C-130s.
That's crazy. That's some firepower. Like, and that's a weird deployment system too. They're not like launching it from like the wing, but they're like dropping out of the back.
Yeah, I mean, like this is. That is crazy, actually, and I thank you so much for sharing that with us, KG, because that is really something worth looking at. I mean, like, and we have thousands of them, he says. So let's pull that up, Rapid Dragon, and let's see, according to at least the public figures, how many of them are there. Let's see, designed, produced, 2022, low production. So I believe that they should have maybe thousands of them within the next few years, which is when we would need them. And I have to say, oh my god, we would stomp them. Like, there's really no way to react to these things. And also, if they're the JASSM ER, so they can't even really see them. So you're firing, from 4 C-130s, 48 cruise missiles that they can't even see to shoot down.
If we got into a fight with Russia, we wouldn't have to worry at all about anything. We could screw them over with this thing right here alone. This is more advanced than their entire army almost combined.
Yeah, I mean, like, oh man, I gotta tell you, I thank you for sharing this with us, KG, because this is going to make me sleep very well tonight, knowing that this is out there somewhere. Because this is going to make the Russians look like they're playing children's games with what they're doing right now. We're going to come in and just steamroll them. I wonder what other weapons we just don't know about, Matthew, that some viewers know about, like these. I didn't know about this thing until right now. And if I had, I would have been much more. I'm already confident before this in saying the United States could stomp the Russians just conventionally. With this kind of stuff, though, that's not even in the question anymore. You could clearly just level the Russians, or the Chinese for that matter, in the opening of a war.
Yeah, as long as they don't go nuclear, we'll be fine.
Yeah, well, hell, even with these, I mean, if you could get an aircraft close enough where these things are in range, you could probably take out the nuclear silos with ease.
Maybe, so.
But that's a little bit of a
especially if they're all rusty nukes.
Yeah, they're rusty nukes. But with that, thank you once again for the support, KG. And with that, we were on to the next one, which is also probably unsurprisingly for KG. So with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and of course, the next one is from KG again, who puts in a $50 donation. Absolutely crazy, KG. Thank you very much for that support. Tremendous tonight. KG says that we could literally kill every strategic nuke silo in Russia right now with these stealth cruise missiles. These cargo planes can drop them well from enemy AAA defenses.
And I thank you for the support once again, KG. And I would have to definitely agree with you. We actually touched on that right before we read that. I would not doubt it that we'd be able to massively cripple Russia's nuclear forces if they're anywhere within range of a JASSM ER or the Rapid Dragon system. But then again, at the same time, I was just thinking, if they pick up those aircraft on radar, which they will, that will give a pretty good idea to them that something is coming, especially if there's different groups of squads of these aircraft, like one coming over the Baltic, some coming over the Arctic, and then some coming from Alaska. I think they would probably get a good idea what was about to happen, but at the same time, it would be pretty hard for them to pick up on it because they would never be able to see the missiles launching on radar because they would never show up. So, very interesting for sure. And I got to thank you so much for sharing that with us, KG, because those things will blow through Russian air defenses like nothing ever before. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Marion Deemert, who who says LSA rocks, and if Russia has 0 on his account, he is loaded.
And thank you so much for the support, Marion. And I would agree with you. If we can't even find out what kind of assets this guy's got, he's got to have some kind of money out there. Because it's impossible for him to have nothing. He's got to have like a house or something, you know, unless if he's living. Oh, well, maybe. Wait, hang on. That was actually a Ukrainian website. They may be trying to list off all of his foreign assets, and he may not have foreign assets. All of his assets are inside of Russia. So he has like a summer home and like near Sochi, and then he has a mansion in Moscow or something. He may have stuff like that that the Ukrainians weren't able to track down well. But he certainly is loaded. No question at all. So with that, thank you once again for support. Hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have another super chat from Rob Eisman, who puts in a $20 donation, and Rob says people need to chill with this Pred drone crap flight adjust. We just sent a B-52 with a capacity capability of 70,000 pounds of strike bombs to within easy range of St. Pete and kept it there half a day. Perspective is critical.
And I thank you for the support, Rob. And I'd agree with you. I've been saying that. I've been saying that almost the whole stream. I'm like, you know, it looks like de-escalation in one regard down here in the Black Sea, but it, like, honestly, in my opinion, that small de-escalation by moving the drone's flight path is completely countered and then tripled by a B-52, a nuclear-capable bomber flying at just a few miles away from St. Petersburg. I mean, like, if that doesn't send a message, I don't know what does. Like, you sit there, Matthew, and you, like, punch the neighbor's dog, and the neighbor comes out with a 50 caliber Barrett aimed right at your head. I mean, like, that's almost what we did. It's like, you can't sit there and say that we have completely wussed out, because flying a nuclear-capable bomber right off the Russian border says a lot in its own way without really speaking much. So with that, thank you once again for support, Rob. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one. And once again, we got another one from KG. And so with that,
yes,
what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and we have another 50 from KG, but real quick, I saw a lot of people saying, and also still thinking said, someone in the chat said to check out the Thor system, and I hope that's not the thing out of Call of Duty, by the way, but maybe we should check it out.
The Thor system. We'll put in...
Maybe put
right
weapon.
Here. So the tactical high-power operational responder, the drone killer, and it comes
once again another word built for an acronym.
Yes, dude, I swear, man, the people in like the acquisitions department in the Department of Defense sit there and go, "What's a cool acronym we could come up with?" Low-key? Okay, so how do we make a weapon that has that name, like the abbreviation of it?
Yes.
And then they sit there,
pull out the filler word dictionary and go at it.
Low operational killing, something, you know, that stands for, and they're like, there we go. And then they're like, let's find it. But let's see. Is it counter unmanned aerial system capable of disabling aerial drone swarms electromagnetically? They got something for everything, don't they? I mean, like, don't they? Hell, you don't even imagine that the military has this kind of crap. Yet we do. You know, really, the military needs to start telling people what kind of cool weapons they have. Because, I mean, like, you know, it's public knowledge. It's on the Air Force Technology website. So they need to make this stuff public. Like, if you put this crap in recruitment ads, like dropping cruise missile swarms out of the back of a C-130, I promise you recruitment numbers would increase tenfold, because everyone would want to fly a C-130 that drops cruise missiles out of the back of it. I mean, and also this thing, too. But let's see. The AFRL is primarily engaged in development and integration of aerospace warfighting technologies. It's a microwave. It's a microwave that they're pointing into the sky, intended for defense of air bases. It was developed with an investment of only $15 million. Only $15 million. It's got to be one of the
only a small loan of $15 million.
But, you know, as far as weapons development programs go, that's got to be one of the cheapest ones I've heard recently.
I mean, I guess it's cheap in the scheme of things, yes.
I mean, like, well, think about it, though. We send aid packages to Ukraine that are, like, $90 billion just about last year. This only cost $15 million to develop. I mean, like, that's nothing, especially in a $740 billion military budget.
That's true. That's true. My brain just hurts though when I hear like 15 million is nothing because it like goes contrary to logic, but it makes sense though.
On a governmental scale, it's nothing.
On a governmental scale, it's acceptable. Yes.
On a personal individual scale, this is more than most people will ever make in their lifetimes times a factor of 5. But for the government, this is cheap. And I mean, like, hell, what is steel? You can shoot down drones. What's the range on this thing though? Let's see. It doesn't really say yet. Yeah, it doesn't say. We sadly don't get to know the range. Well, it says a greater engagement range when compared to bullets or nets. So what does that mean? Because bullets can go out, like, you know, if it's from a close-in weapon system, they can go out like 3.5 miles. Does that mean it's able to go out 4 miles or 5 miles? And then it also says nets, which are pretty much right on whatever you're protecting. So I don't understand what that's supposed to mean, but still, this thing is incredibly cool. So I hope we addressed that fairly well. And now we're on to the next one from KG.
All right, and this one from KG says, the beautiful thing is that we always fly bomber missions near their borders, and it would be just an exercise again. They'd never see a deployment of Rapid Dragon. It would appear another fly near. Wink, wink.
KG, you're a genius. I completely didn't think about that. And you're right. We do that often. And I said do, Matthew. But anyways, you are correct. We do that a lot. And I've mentioned that before whenever people bring up, oh my God, a Russian bomber flew near the U.S. border. The Alaskan airspace. And I always sit there and say, nah, that's not a big deal. We do that a lot to them as well. And you're right, we do. And so they would just see the B-52s, well, not the B-52s, sorry, the C-17s or the C-130s flying in, and by the time they intercept them, they may have already dropped those things and they're on their way. I guess the only way the Russians would ever know about those little cruise missiles is if a Russian aircraft spotted either their propellant streak of them using their motor, or if they visibly saw one of those things, and then that would be the only way they would know. So with that, I thank you so much once again for support and sharing that with us. You have this whole entire thing figured out, KG, and I thank you for sharing that with us because, one, that is an incredibly cool system, and two, you're letting me know how much more capable the U.S. military is than I already thought it was. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Technical Fool, who puts in a 20 and says, don't forget, LRASM can be dropped from Rapid Dragon 2.
The LRASM. Lastrum.
I don't know what that word stands for, or the acronym. Oh, that's actually an acronym that wasn't, like, you know, designed to fit the phrase.
Yeah. Long-range anti-ship missiles and stealth anti-ship cruise missile. We love stealth here in this country, don't we? I mean, like, everything these days is stealth. That's great, though, because no one can pick it up and no one can even stop that thing from coming in. I mean, like, think about this, though, Matthew. This is really cool. Like, let's say you're on the Moskva, and it did not sink. Let's see, Moskva ship. Let's say you're on this thing. It's got some close-in weapon systems that I believe existed. So let me go down here and let me make sure. It's got anti-ship missiles. It's got the S-300s. Yep. It's got these things. Okay, it's got the OSAs. It's got the AK. Not one of those. Here we go. It's the AK-630s. These stupid little things. They've got 6 of these things on the Moskva. All of them are guided by radar. So they have to pick up something on radar, and then they turn towards it and they fire at it with a ballistics computer telling them what kind of lead they need on the target. If you fire a stealth anti-ship missile at the Moskva, there's no way for it to even lock on to that thing and fire at it because there's no radar input for it to lock onto. So it's completely defenseless against it.
Yeah, it's tough to get a lock through all that water.
Yeah. What the hell are you talking about? Lock through water? Oh, wait, okay. Now
it's
I know
at the bottom of the water.
Under the sea. I thought you meant. I thought you meant on the surface. I was about to say we bounced out. Not today. But anyways, I had to fit that in.
That would be wonderful. I know Russia would love it to have their boat above water again, but it's never going to happen. Poor thing.
Nah, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. What the hell? They literally got like a cheap yacht you can buy like for like $40,000 on the side of the ship. Is that their away boat?
That's a fishing boat.
Dude, they pulled up to a marina with this thing and just said, "I'll have the cheapest one, please." And then put it on the side of the ship. That is stupid looking. And that tells you how sad they are. They are just so freaking sad. But yeah, I mean, like, that's actually wild to think about. And think about this also, Matthew. The Black Sea Fleet is like 36 surface vessels or something like that. 4 C-130s carrying these Lastrums could take out the entire Black Sea Fleet, and there's nothing they can do to stop it.
Really?
Yeah, that's great. I love this. I thank y'all for sharing that with me. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have another super chat from guess who? KG.
No
KG
way.
puts in another 50. Absolutely insane. Thank you, KG. Have I told you about the RIM 162E SSM yet? The missile that tanks out hypersonic missiles.
Let's see. The evolved, it's the evolved Sea Sparrow missile. Let's see, protect ships from attacking missiles and aircraft. It's designed to counter supersonic maneuvering anti-ship missiles. It also has the ability to be quad-packed in the Mark 41 vertical launch system, allowing up to 4 ESSMs to be carried in a single cell. It's been in service since 2004, and it appears that it is some kind of an upgrade. Let's see. So it appears that it's an upgrade from the AIM 120. Now, I'm not sure if this one will be able to intercept a hypersonic, considering that hypersonics didn't really exist when this thing was entered into service, but maybe it can. But so far, when our searches ever came back, it always said there was nothing that could defend against a hypersonic yet. Let's see, 2000s, Mark 29, Mark 48, Sandflex. Let's see, let's scroll down a little bit further, Mark 56, Mark 57. It's used on the Zumwalt. It's designed to be installed on the ship periphery instead of the centralized magazines. I don't see any of it, though, saying that it's able to shoot down a hypersonic. So, I don't know. I'll still take your word on it, though, KG. It may be able to shoot down a hypersonic, but it must have not been proven yet to be able to do that, and so we don't really know if it can or can't. But considering it can intercept something that is supersonic, maybe it can. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address the comment fairly well, KG, and thank you for throwing in your 20th $50 super chat of the night. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Psyops, who is our moderator on the stream.
Hey!
As everyone knows.
Oh my
goodness gracious. But anyways, we'll get to that one in a moment. But Psyops has a interesting little song here, and I sent it to your Discord because you know how I feel about singing. So there you go. It's in your DMs.
It's in your DMs. Matthew says it like that every single time. Almost like with me saying, with that being said. But let's see here. Close? Let's see here. I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, I
don't know.
Psyops just Pavlov me into thinking there's always something weird with what he's sending out. I mean, like, it sounds innocent. It doesn't sound as bad as anything we've said tonight, but at the same time, we'll read it off. We're going to give this one the benefit of the doubt and read it off, Matthew. Brick wall, waterfall, Ukraine girl, you got it all. You do. Orcs don't. Now you're off to slay them all. Enforcer Matt must read this like a valley girl. I don't know what a valley girl is, and I'm not Enforcer Matt either. And Texas stinks.
Hey, that laugh was just on time.
But still, thank you for the support, Psyops. I don't know if we got had. Lewis said, it's a trap, like Admiral Apgar on Star Wars, or whatever his name was. But still, thank you so much for the support. I hope that addressed that fairly well. And it looks like a lot of people got laughs out of that one, so I think we may have been had. I don't know. But with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you once again, Psyops, for being our funny little fella down there in the live chat, being our moderator. And I hope we read that fairly well. And so, with that, we are on to the next one. And what the hell are you talking about, Leon Spriere? What the hell does that mean?
Man, it's like, You got a little excited.
Calm it down. Calm it down. Let's just calm it down there. But with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again, Psyops.
All right, and up next, we have that $200 donation from Randall Smith.
Holy
Thank you very much,
moly.
Randall, for the support. Very, very large donation, and thank you for helping to keep us running. He says, shout out to the Leaf Spring Army, my people. Open-ended question. What final act or circumstance, in parentheses with an S, does the enforcer see this Ukraine versus Russia war ending? I'm not looking for quotes.
And I thank you for the support. It's good to hear you're not looking for quotes, because I was actually going to lowball you and say $40 in a snack, but now that I don't have to give a quote, I'm okay. I don't have to do any of that. Also, I want to give a shout out to the Lee Spring Army for you, because they're not just your people. They're my people. They're in the Lee Spring Army.
Hey, shout out to the LSA.
Hey, shout out to the LSA. The LSA, man, I got to say, I always look over the live chat, and it hits me every once in a while. Man, this whole community is just here. This community doesn't exist anywhere else. And I think that's incredibly, I think that's amazing. And I think the LSA is great. It's top notch. I mean, like how we've helped save so many lives in Ukraine through the fundraisers. It's a great community. We're constantly growing. We're constantly spreading like some kind of a disease. But we're a good disease. We're the kind of disease you want. Not that there's any out there that are really in the world you really want. But still,
no.
I gotta say, the LSA is great. And also, there are several. And it's great that you put a little apostrophe, well, in parentheses, an S behind circumstance, because there are several circumstances out there that may be plausible. They're all equally plausible. So, number 15. Number 1 would be the Russians keep Sevastopol. Well, they keep the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. They will probably kill to do that. They'll probably nuke to do that, because that's very important to them. But kind of like it's important to us. So they might end up keeping it. That is a likely option. Second likely option is that Ukraine is able to retake Crimea, but they're not able to retake the Donbass, because the Russians may still try and hold the Donbass, so that way they might be able to get something out of it. But they would probably rather give up the Donbass before Crimea, because Crimea is more important in the long run. The other option is that Ukraine takes it all, and they never get a peace treaty from the Russians, so they're officially at war with the Russians in perpetuity. And so they never, I guess you could say, in the war, and the Ukrainians and the Russians are on a hostile stance, kind of like the North and South Koreans at the DMZ. Another way this could end is that the Russians collapse mid-war and the war just ends in the chaos and the Ukrainians retake the country. Another way this could end is that the Chinese support the Russians and the United States continues to support Ukraine, and it becomes a battle of economics. Who can supply their side the longest until the other one gives out? And then who knows how that will end. That really would be up in the air. Another final way this could end is that the Ukrainians are able to retake a good amount of ground, and the Russian government just decides that it's not worth their time, so they return everything back to its pre-2014 borders, but they make some kind of an agreement with Ukraine that no matter what, the Black Sea Fleet has port basing rights in Sevastopol. That is another way this could end. Those are all of the possible circumstances I think are possible. I'm not going into like the deep rabbit holes in each one as to why they're possible or how that would come to be, but those are the ones I'm seeing right now. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Randall. And that's a massive amount of support. And I thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope I answered that question fairly well. Of course, not giving any quotes because I was going to give you $40 and a snack. And so with that, we're on to the next one. And thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and up next we have a $10 super chat from Jim Smith, who says, LSA Jim, ready to serve, stirs.
Hey! And thank you for the support, LSA Jim. And thank you for being a part of the Lee Spring Army and helping this channel to keep on rolling. If you're ready to be here, that is good. We are going to be redesigning our flag. We have not actually put out our flag yet, and that's because it'll be undergoing a redesign. I've decided, since the original design was inspired by the Prussians, and then for some reason everyone started saying that it looked kind of Nazi, which wasn't the intent. The intent was that it kind of looked Prussian, or the alternative was that it was going to look French. But then every single person who designed a flag made the Prussian design, and I was like, okay, we'll go with it. then nobody. Well, actually, a lot of people liked it, but then there was enough questions that were raised about it possibly being Nazi that I was like, we don't want that to ever be a question anyone has to ask when they look at our flag. So now we have to go redesign it. So now we're going to redesign it. It's probably going to go under a very, like, in terms of its actual design, it's probably going to go under a small redesign, not a big one. But we're probably going to start leaning more towards Austro-Hungarian flag designs because, well, really just symbology and everything else, because unlike any other time, well, I guess you could say the Austro-Hungarians collapsed before communism, fascism, or I guess you could say kind of like the modern political basics, as people would understand today as being extremely far right or extremely far left, they collapsed before any of that really even existed the way it did today. So there's really no way you can associate Austro-Hungarian symbols and flags and stuff with either one. So it ends up being neutral, kind of like how we try and keep the political stance on this channel. So if you're standing ready, make sure to wait for a flag, because one will eventually be coming out, and we'll be getting hopefully a really good looking one, because Buga's was great. Buga's flag design by no means was terrible. It was impressive. But we'll have it redesigned and hopefully looking a little bit better, and hopefully not having anyone ask a question, hey, that kind of looks a little weird. Anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
Yes, all right. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Psyops once again. He says, any comment on Xi and Putler being caught under the diplomatic covers last night?
Whoa.
Oh, let's see.
Whoa.
Well, guess what, Sobs? I can't read off the last part, but what we'll do is I did find the picture you were referring to, and I sent it to the Enforcer's DMs. It's in your DMs.
All right, let me check this one on my phone. Got the question, dude. Oh, whoa! I guess you could say that.
Go it.
I don't know, man. Oh, yeah! I guess you could say that Xi Jinping was laying down pipe, but it wasn't no oil pipeline, I'll tell you that.
No.
I'm sorry, I had to do it. But still, thank you for the support, Psyops, and I would have to say, shameful display, shameful. And so with that, I hope I addressed that fairly well. I hope I put out a pretty good joke there. I hope that was Psyops worthy. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support, and I hope that addressed that fairly well. And the live chat's going wild.
Oh, no. Is it fake or is it real? Can somebody tell me?
Oh, man. Let's say a lot of people are actually getting a laugh out of that joke. I'm glad y'all did.
Is this a Midjourney 5 like AR rendering? Or AI rendering, not AR?
I don't know. Maybe it was a bad camera angle when they took that picture, but man. Oh no, JD Mako, come on. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. With that, we're on to the next one. But thank you once again, Saj. You sent the live chat wild.
All right, so up next, we have a $10 super chat from Adelbridge120, who says, when the drone hits your base way out into space, that's amore.
When the drone hits your base and blows it out into space, that's amore. I should have added that into the Morse code, because that actually made it work. And on Napoli, like they say, we have a nice little sea sparrow. Ring-a-ding-a-ling, ring-a-ding-a-ling. That's the air alarms going on over Moscow City. But anyways, ding-ding-ding-ding. Y'all got that correct. And I got to thank y'all so much once again for deciphering that Morse code message. Is that a live chat or a super chat?
That was a super chat.
Oh, like usually it's in the live chat. So I was like, I don't think I heard you say this was in a live chat, but anyways, thank y'all for deciphering that Morse code message again. And I also thank you for the support, because y'all have been doing this for 311 days now, because the Morse code messages were introduced around day 80. And I can't believe that y'all have been doing that for this long. So thank y'all once again for continuing on the deciphering of the Morse code message, because we actually tried to get rid of it, but then people were so disappointed and saddened that we got rid of it that we had to bring it back, because it just became a part of like our very unique intro. And I remember back in the day, Matthew, when people used to complain that our intro was too long, and now people flood in to be there at the critical moments of the countdown, like the Bayraktar song, the sirens, the Lee Spring Army singing his regards. It's incredibly cool that it's stayed around as a tradition that long. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. Thank y'all for deciphering the Morse code message as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Matthew. Your last name, I believe, is very hard to pronounce, and
Matthew
I'm scared I'm
McConaughey?
gonna mess it up. No. Very, very strange last name, but very unique. Very unique. But thank you, Matthew, for the support. He says, LSA for life. Throw this one to the live chat and glory to the heroes.
And thank you so much for the support. And LSA for life. LSA service is for life.
For some reason, that made me think of R. Kelly screaming at that reporter, "Y'all messing with my life!"
I'm fighting for my life! But still, I thank you so much for the support. LSA membership is for life. Once you come to this live chat, you're an LSA member for life. And also, Slava Ukraini. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. I hope that does address that comment fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one. I don't know what it is, Matthew. I don't know if I drank too much coffee, too little coffee, or what. But my eyeballs are closing over here. So with that, we're on to the next.
Eyeballs are closing. How's that possible? You mean your eyelids?
No, my eyeballs, like my corneas are. I'm just kidding.
Huh.
It's my eyelids. They're closing. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one. While Matthew absolutely slaughters a bot. Look at him go. It's on to the next one.
A little bot blitz here. They like to come in at the same time to try to see if they can overcome defenses, but I don't know. I guess you could say this is a CRAM over here. This isn't going to happen on my watch.
We're frying them with the microwaves, Matthew. We're cooking them up like a hot pocket.
Zonk. Bonk.
But with that,
Man, I'm not a NAFO member yet, but I know how to bonk.
I don't know if we can ever, like, I don't know. Like, I'm going to ask the NAFO folks, can we be, like, honorary NAFO members? Because Matthew and me, like, I think we were, like, dubbed a while ago. I'm the general. Matthew's, like, the, I forgot what you are, but you're, like, right under general of the Lee Spring Army. And it's like, or can we be NAFO? You know, is it, like, a thing with, like, I don't know. Like, answer that for us, NAFO. Can we be, like, honorary NAFO? Like, answer it up. Answer it up. But with that, we are on to the next one. But I hope we get a good answer to that. Like, yeah, we can be. Because I would think that would be cool if we were honorary NAFO.
Indeed. And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Thomas, who says, Igor.
Igor! And thank you so much for the support, Thomas. And helping this channel to keep on running. And of course, before we move on to the next one, I have to say it one more time. Igor! And with that, we're on to the next one. Thank you once again for the support.
All right, and the next one goes to Psyops yet again, who puts in a $10 donation and says this question is brought to you by Kalo. He said he wanted to say hi.
Oh, hello there.
Oh, hello.
And thank you so much for the support. And I have to say hello. I hope you're all doing well down there. And thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
And I see here, looks like several representatives of NAFO are saying that the invitation has been extended before, and they simply want to know if we wanted to take them up on the offer. And I did not know that, and I will have to get with you all, NAFO, because I think we are interested in joining.
Yes, we are interested in being honorary NAFO members. Of course, LSA, well, hell, you know what? Since I'm going to be the president in 2040, I'll just say I'm the president. Well, no, that's an elected position, and I'm here permanently, you know, because it's a channel. It's not like I get voted out or anything. I'm going to be here forever. What the hell am I? Like, you know, like, as far as the LSA is concerned, I can't leave because that's the enforcer channel, so... What am I?
That's typically called an authoritarian, but I'm not sure if that applies.
Dictator. Well, you know, I don't want to sit there and call myself like a monarch or anything, like a king or anything, because then that has like political connotations to it. What the hell am I? Like, y'all need to get to work on that, because I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to be. Because I've heard like general, I've heard I've heard someone say that. Like the Generalissimo, like I'm Kim Jong-un or something. Like, I don't know. It literally said channel dictator. I don't know. If I am, do I have like the authority to send bots to the salt mines? Because if so, we will. I mean, you know. But anyways, with that, Oh no, not no.
Oh
no. Sanai said Premier. Let's see. Miss Deesa said Commander Enforcer. You know what? That is my title. I'm just the Enforcer. That's like the highest up it goes. I'm the Enforcer. That's it. You know. So we'll just keep that as my title. I'm Enforcer. Yeah, that works because that's the name of the channel too. So with that, and now people are coming up with Admiral General Aladdin. And then Dubber Bob said Enforcer is a rank. Enforcer is a rank in the mob, I think. Like someone actually brought that up to me before, but that's not what it was supposed to mean. The Enforcer was just my gamer tag on Steam, and that's where the channel name comes from. So it just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The enforcer goes around collecting debts, and if you don't pay up, that's why we say baseball bat. We're going to get the kneecaps.
No, Matty, no, you don't. It's not debts. We go around gathering protection fees.
That's right.
Yeah.
Innocent protection.
And now everyone's like, Enforcer. Yeah, you know what? That's going to be the title. It's not going to be anything else. It's just the Enforcer. I'm the Enforcer. So, and I guess. Well, Enforcer Matt doesn't really sound like a good title, to be honest. Like, to have a title. Matthew will be the General Secretary. Yeah, that's a good title. What do you think about that, Matthew? General Secretary.
Yeah, General Secretary on the weekdays and Executioner by night.
Yeah. No, the General Secretary is in charge of all that stuff, man. He's an all-encompassing umbrella. So... yeah, Matthew's the General Secretary, so if y'all ever want to say General Secretary Enforcer Matt, go ahead. So with that, we're on to the next.
Or you can call me the Godfather or Consigliere, whichever you prefer.
you gotta respect the family. Anyways, we're on to the next. We're goofing around too much here.
Man, that username right there who said SAR Enforcer and Tax Collector Matt, that username throws me off every time I see it. I'm like expecting a bot, but I don't think it is. So
let's see. Oh yeah, he's just hung around. Like, I guess, I don't know. Anyways, with that, we're on to the next.
All right, and up next we have another super chat from Psyops, who puts in a 10 and says we need. Wait a minute, hold on, let's see here. I don't know what this means. Like, this one is cryptic. It's going over my head. So guess what? It's going over to the Enforcer for a review. It's the food of the week or something. Review of the week. Food review. Whatever. What the hell?
We need sheep specs before we can test out the effects of those depleted uranium shells. Look up vaporific tests from Pentagon Wars 1997 with Kelsey Grammer. I've seen that movie before, one of the few I've seen. And I gotta tell you, that was a slander campaign against the Bradley. The Bradley is not that bad, and I think that's absolutely stupid because they sat there and said, "Oh, it's so dangerous." Like, the real story is that they didn't want the Bradley to be introduced because these people are called reformists, and they believe that the M113, the armored personnel carrier, the box on tracks right here, they believe this thing's a godsend and it just can do everything. And they sat there and went in the movie, "Oh my god, the shape, they died because the Bradley was hit and it's made of aluminum, and aluminum is toxic when it catches on fire." But then it's like, what are you, stupid? Do you know what the M113 is made of? It's made of aluminum. It's literally the same. It's like, you're idiots. Like, I don't even get it. It's like, the Bradley added so much to what an infantry fighting vehicle in the U.S. Army could do. These idiots wanted to keep the M113 that was also made out of aluminum, because if the Bradley was hit, the aluminum is toxic. But apparently with the godly M113, which they lovingly dubbed the Gavin, the aluminum isn't toxic. I'm sorry, I know that was a joke, but that movie is just so dumb. It's just dumb to a whole other level. It's like, and it's like they found out that the Bradley blows up when hit from the side with an ATGM because it has like paper thin armor, because it's filling the role of a recon / light tank / APC. It's like, duh. I would expect it to. Yeah, it's an armored personnel carrier that's kind of souped up. I don't even get it, man. Anyways, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one. But thank you once again.
All right, and for this next super chat, it is a $10 donation from none other than Jay Bagwell. And also, Jay sent along a accompanying exhibit for his super chat, and it's in your Discord DMs.
And I saw it.
And I'll read it off while you're pulling that up. Fun fact, the USA also makes depleted uranium rounds for the 25mm Bushmaster cannon on the Bradley, and see Discord DM.
And I thank you so much for the support, Jay. And I actually did know about that. And when I saw that super chat, I was like, oh, cool, I can talk about it. That's really interesting about the Bradley, is that the Bradley was actually recorded in the Gulf War to be able to destroy Soviet era and Soviet design main battle tanks with its main gun, thanks to these little shells right here. And that is very interesting because if, and this is a huge conditional if we did quietly send over depleted uranium 25mm rounds with our Bradleys to Ukraine, those Bradleys, in theory, at a close enough range, could blow right through Russian armor and destroy the tank. So it wouldn't even need the tows for that. It could actually do that on its own. So that is a really cool fact. And I thank you for sharing that, Jay, because that allowed me to say that the Bradley is even better than most people imagine. And so, thank you once again. I hope that does address the comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, Ted B said, you're going to make me get a Twitter, aren't you, enforcers? Ted, join the ranks. Please, join the ranks. We've had so many people create a Twitter just to follow our page, and I appreciate it greatly because I love to see that follower count go up because we're doing tremendously good work over there. And we're staying on top of all of our sources to get that news out quick. And look, Enforcer's going to plug it a second time. This is insane.
Second time. We've gotten 10 followers in between the last plug and this one. And I highly recommend that if you do not have a Twitter, get a Twitter. And don't sit there and use the excuse that you don't like the guy that owns Twitter. You're not there for him. You're there for the Lee Spring Army. If you're a Lee Spring Army soldier, you have an obligation to go wherever the Lee Spring Army stands and wherever the Lee Spring Army banner flies. And a Lee Spring Army banner is flying on Twitter. If you don't like the bots there, that's why we're there. We're there to spread our news, and we're also there to swat bots like NAFO. So make sure to join us over there, because we will be dominating Twitter in where we're dominating right now. We're growing so fast that most Twitters that are about the Ukraine war are either way smaller than ours or they're the same size as ours. So make sure to join it, because we're going to become one of the preeminent Twitters and one of the preeminent armies, second to NAFO, on Twitter, fighting against the Russo bots. So with that, and also,
it's friendly competition. You see, there's Denny's Davidov over there on the right. I noticed that Denny's and us are like locked in an arms race now. He's increased his tweets. I'm increasing my tweets, and we're going at it. We're growing our Twitter pages at the same time.
Oh yeah, and he's got 2,833 followers. So that's actually good. Friendly competition is good. It'll be an arms race to see how many followers we can get, and that only helps, because the more people that compete on Twitter, the more the news gets out, which is great, and then the more people that follow, which is even better because it keeps the Lee Spring Army growing. And what's better than that? So with that, I hope we addressed that fairly well. And make sure to join our Twitter, and make sure to represent the Lee Spring Army. Also, we'll be trying to make a digital image of the Lee Spring Army flag when the final design comes out again. So that way y'all can make it your profile picture or your banner in the background. So that way people know that you're a part of the LSA. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a $5 super chat from Dark Warrior 137, who says, do you think Russians look up at the sky and salute their fallen brothers' tank turrets as they pass over orbit?
Oh man, Yuri Gagarin is in one of those turrets, you know it, and I thank you so much for the support, and I would have to agree with you. It's the Russian turrets. They look up to the sky, hoping one day they'll be amongst the stars, and alas, they're in Ukraine, so their wish comes true. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope we addressed that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 and says, take a live chat question. And of course we will. And thank you very much for the support, CK Bold. And this live chat question goes to Michael Gustavusson, who says, is it possible that Prigozhin kept pushing in Bakhmut because he wouldn't get paid until he took the city?
It may be the case, but at the same time, they're making almost no momentum. And for the amount of resources and men that they've lost, however much they were going to be paid isn't even worth it anymore, because they've well exceeded that in just the cost of manpower and vehicles alone. But great question, though. And so with that issue, here we go. It reconnected. Paul, thank the Lord. That was going on a little too long. Scared me a little bit. And so with that, I hope y'all heard the answer. Did y'all hear the answer? Did you hear the answer, Matthew? Hello? Hello, Matthew? Oh, God.
Oh, God.
Oh, come on. It should be working. One second, let me check Discord. Oh, yeah, the voice isn't there. Man. Dang it, that sucks. But y'all can see me over there. Huh. And I think y'all can still hear me. Let me check that real quick. Nope. Wait a minute. Huh. And I think y'all can still hear me. Yeah, y'all can. Y'all can still hear me over there. So it looks like we've lost Matthew.
Man, what the hell?
I don't know what the hell's going on, Matthew, but...
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now.
Oh, okay.
That was weird. So I hope we answered that one fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. I thought the bots were getting their revenge for a minute, but luckily it was a problem apparently with my Discord. But up next, we have a $5 super chat from White Lightning 777, who says, should Ukraine send lice, ticks, and leeches into the orc trenches, morale goes bust.
Oh, they're already in there. Trench conditions like breed those little creatures. And back in the day, in the First World War, I don't know what kind of animal it was. Mites. Mites were really bad in First World War trenches, to the point that sometimes they would say they would take their pants off and just put them on the ground, and well, actually they would turn them inside out and they would put them on the ground, and the mites would literally make the inside of the pants, which were white, look black because there was just so many of them. So I would say they're already there, but they should send more. Please send more to Russian trench. Thank you. And the trash will feed them. So with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And Miss Disa said, Matt's back. Yeah. And yes, I am. And also, I just saw a report from a fella in the area. Can't name him for his own OPSEC, but he also said that he experienced a spectrum issue himself. So apparently, it's not just us. It's apparently a lot of other people as well. I guess we ought to ask more people around the area if they have problems with it too.
I knew it, Matthew. I knew it. It's not my computer. It's the whole area.
It's the whole area. It's Alabama.
All right, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bob Anon, who puts in a $5 donation and says, Enforcer, maybe you should become a tax lawyer. Oh, no. With your mathematical talents, you could legitimately defend creative accounting with clean hands.
Oh, lol. Certainly. I would be committing attorney malpractice all over the place as well. But still, thank you for the support and the belief in my mathematical skills. I promise y'all that if I become president of the United States, I'm going to have an entire computing team to do the math on everything, so that way I'm not messing it up. But with that, thank you for the support. I hope that addresses that fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
All right. And also, to the viewer here that asked about, do you have to download Twitter to use it? You do not. You can just simply go to twitter.com and use it from there. Although if you want to download the app, it's pretty handy too. And yes, Conferelli, I do agree with you 100% on that. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Boy, who says, Ginny the Pooh and Puglet 2.
Pootlet.
Big Luton. Big Luton, rootin', where they're tootin'. Oh.
I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means. But still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for making us an interesting story. Do they live in the 100-acre woods or do they live in Siberia? Good question. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $5 super chat from Unnamed Agency at a undisclosed location, who says, you didn't hear it from me, but every UFO you ever heard of is a U.S. weapons platform. Slava Ukraine.
And thank you for the support. And I wouldn't doubt it, because seeing the things we have and I never knew about always makes me think, wow, what else does the military have that is beyond my comprehension right now? And I'm sure they have it out there.
Lockheed tried to tell us yesterday. They tried to tell us in a Twitter post. They said that the SR-71 is the fastest acknowledged aircraft in existence, and that was made way back. Can you imagine in the 30 or 40 years it's been since then? They have developed something else that we are not knowing about.
Enter the flipper jibber, the Mach 15 surveillance aircraft that's so fast the Russians don't even see it on radar, because by the time the radar comes back to them, it's gone. But anyway,
everybody is always talking about the Aurora, but it's probably something else.
Oh man, I mean, you know, I'm not one of those people. Like, one thing I will say is that the civilian computer industry has far superseded, because there's a market there for it, the military computer industry, I guess you could say. Because if you go onto any government or military run computer, they're running like Windows XP. You know, they're not running modern computer, like modern browser systems or anything like that. So they are a little bit behind the times in that area. But in other areas like computer storage and server space and stuff like that, oh the hell, they're beating everyone out for sure. But man, I just wonder what they do have out there. I don't wonder what's in testing. Maybe one day when I become president, I can just comb through those classified documents and then nicely tuck them away in my garage or at my hotel somewhere. That would be nice. But anyways,
you know something fun fact real quick. You know the SR-71, the aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why they call it the SR-71?
Because it's the SR-71. Duh.
No, it was supposed to be called the RS-71, but somebody screwed it up when they announced it, and the government announced the plane, and they ended up having to call it the SR-71 because it screwed the letters up.
Are you serious?
Dead serious.
That's crazy. You want to hear another fun fact about someone missaying something and then it changed everything?
What's that?
The German...
This is going to be a joke. I have a feeling.
No. This is a serious story. The Germans, East Germany was supposed to unite with West Germany in 1991, but when the spokesman came out for the East German government to the press conference and made that announcement about there would be more free and open travel with West Germany as they try and unite the country, a news reporter asked, when will that become effective? And the spokesman got it wrong, and he said something right off the cuff, and he said, well, effective immediately, and he meant immediately within government time, which was 1991. But the public in East Germany took that as, like, today, like that day in 1989. And that's why the Berlin Wall came down the way it did, with just massive crowds gathering on both sides, is because that poor guy there, he probably got executed just within those few hours that the East German government still existed. He sat there and said, instead of saying, it will be in 2 years' time on this date, he said, effective immediately, without any further delay. And then everyone in East Germany said, oh, yay! Then just ran to the wall and tore it down. But yeah, that's another instant of someone having a misspeaking and then it just changing everything. But with that, we are on to... Also, y'all can pull up that... Wait a minute, hang on. I want to show you this, Matthew.
We're running low on time.
Oh, yeah,
we have 4 super chats left and many live chats.
Oh, yes. With that, we're on to the next one. Sadly, I can't show you that video, but we're on to the next one.
All right. And also, y'all please tag the friendly Russians in the chat so I can give them a friendly exit. But up next, we have a $5 super chat from Ben, who says, can you tell us the types of Russian special equipment vehicles that are being used by the Russians that the Ukrainians are destroying?
Can you reread that one again?
Yes. Ben says, can you tell us the types of Russian special equipment vehicles that are being used by the Russians that the Ukrainians are destroying?
Excavators, tank recovery vehicles, excavator vehicles that the military actually owned, bulldozers. Some of them may actually be bobcats, although that will be unlikely. And then that's really it. Those are really the only vehicles I can think of. Anything that's in construction is qualified as a special vehicle. And so with that, I hope that does answer that question fairly well. Thank you once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $3 super chat from Epic Trains Canada, who says, Igor and Slava Ukraine.
Igor and Slava Ukraine. And thank you once again for the support, Epic Trains Canada. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And big shout out to KG, who put in a $2 donation once again. And KG, you've been extremely generous tonight. And also, thank you for the $2 support as well. Dupper also puts in a $2 donation. And that is Dupper Bob, who says Slava Ukraine, and also Hiram Slava.
Slava Ukraini. Dupper Bob always coming in with that super chat every single night, $2 super chat. And I got to thank you so much for the support, Dupper Bob. You've helped out this channel for a long time, been a massive channel supporter, and we thank you so much once again for your continued support. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I believe we're out of super chats, if I heard you correctly.
And we are. So we're jumping right into our live chat questions. And up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. JP's RCs, Rumpelstiltskin, Cife, Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, and also Dark Warrior 137. They said the Morse code is, when the drone hits your base way out in space, that's amore.
And I thank y'all for deciphering that Morse code message. I already went over the whole spiel earlier in a super chat, so we'll cut this one a little bit short due to time, but thank y'all for deciphering that Morse code message once again on the 391st day. And with that, we're on to the next one.
Is it time for the speed run?
Yes. I was dreading it, but yeah, it's time for the speed run.
All right. So first up in the live chat, we have a question from Louis Noel Magana, who says, I know it's on stream, but how long will it take for U.S., NATO, EU to hunt for Putler if he doesn't surrender to the ICC?
They will never be able to try and get him if he stays inside of Russia. There's no way they can organize a manhunt because first they have to get those teams over into Russia. So it's most likely going to be impossible for them to do that unless he leaves Russia. And then once at that point, it would be as soon as he arrives at the airfield, he would most likely be arrested. So with that, thank you once again for the question. I hope that answers it fairly well. With that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Drew Robinson, who says, do you think that Putin is just looking for any excuse to use a strategic nuclear missile?
I don't think he is, because he understands that nuclear, biological, or chemical warfare will involve the United States of America. And so for that reason, he'll probably not try and use nuclear weapons because the implications are terrible. And so with that, I hope that answers the question. We're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Avdiivka, who says, is it me, or is the AFU prioritizing finding and destroying artillery systems?
Yes, they are. Artillery systems are one of the main winners of the war currently. The Ukrainians and the Russians use them to a massive degree, and if you're able to destroy artillery systems, you're able to make sure that there are no capabilities of the other side to hit your forces incredibly hard. And so that's why the Ukrainians are constantly doing counter-battery operations to try and take out those artillery pieces and make sure that they can't keep using them. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. With that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Gabriel Mum, who says, how much would it cost to upgrade the runways in Ukraine to support F-16s? Would it be worth the investment?
We don't really know for certain. It must be too expensive because it seems as though the United States is not willing to give over M16s F-16s due to the high cost. And so it may be that it's too expensive for them to practically do, but we don't actually have a number. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, we have a $2 super chat from Midget Hobbit, who says, send somebody to the front line. I'm not sure who that is still, but thank you very much for the support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support. I don't know who that guy is. Oh, wait a minute, that's the fat guy.
We have to slow down for that one.
Yeah, that's the fat guy who wears the Mickey Mouse hat, I think. Yeah, you don't know who I'm talking about, thank God. But, yeah, send him to the front. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Mitchell Hamid. I hope that answered it fairly well. With that, we're on.
And the next one goes to Fly NY, who says, do you think China will become more involved with Russia? An example, sending weapons and ammo.
Yes, I do think they will. The current meeting that they had right now appears to be going in that direction. I'm sorry, I can't talk super fast and I can't super speed it, but it appears that they were talking about that today and they may be moving in that direction. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Dirk, who says, some are saying it's a Chinese drone. Is it Chinese parts and Ukrainian modified, or is it just bought from the Chinese?
It looks like it's just bought from the Chinese from what we understand, but we don't really know a lot about the composition of the drones because we never saw them in broad daylight and we only saw the tail section. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Bradley Collins, who says, how do you think this war will end?
This war could end in several ways. That's a loaded question. I'm just kidding. It's not a loaded question. It's just that it can end in so many ways. It's hard to go through all of them. But the Ukrainians will get back their territory, and hopefully the best case scenario would be that they retake Crimea and kick the Black Sea Fleet out. And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, and we're on to the next one.
All right, and Scott Mensing has a question. He says, doesn't it seem counterproductive for China to broker a peace deal while supplying the Russian war effort?
It does.
Amen, Scott. Amen.
It does seem counterproductive. You hit it right on the nail, and that's why the Chinese really don't want peace. They want to weaken the Russians by supporting them enough to keep them in the war a little bit longer. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Mitchell Beatty, who says, there were a lot of soldiers in the Gulf War they suspect have gotten sick from breathing in tainted air from depleted uranium rounds used in Iraqi tanks. A lot of soldiers would go and inspect kills. Thoughts?
We don't really know what caused Gulf War syndrome. I have looked into that a good bit, because it was actually a curiosity of mine a while ago. I was like, what is Gulf War syndrome? No one's really been able to find a reason. We don't know if it's because they inhaled the air where the oil wells were burning. We don't know if it was something with the chemicals that were being used to treat the water. We have no idea. So maybe, but to make the claim that it is the depleted uranium shells that did that to American soldiers would also be a little bit tough to say as well, because the Iraqis hardly were ever able to fire a shot at any American soldiers, and a lot of these soldiers never even endured real combat. Some of them just maneuvered and never actually got into firefights, yet they still came down with the Gulf War syndrome, which removes the concept of it being combat related or PTSD related, or shell shock related as we call it. And so with that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person who put in the lucky... Well, we'll read Dark Warrior 137.
And that viewer is Dark Warrior 137, who puts in a 2, and he says it's a bad time to say take one from the live chat. And guess what? It's a perfect time to say that. And now Enforcer segues into it.
And who is the lucky last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is JC, the Music Man. He says, considering that a country has to apply to join NATO, can you explain how a stationary country can encroach another country? Aren't people free to defend themselves?
A stationary country encroach on another country. All countries are stationary. Not a lot of them move. So can you reread that one again? Because I think I may be misunderstanding it.
Yes. JC, the Music Man. He says, considering that a country has to apply to join NATO, can you explain how a stationary country can encroach another country? Aren't people free to defend themselves?
Do you understand what that means? Because for some reason, I'm not understanding it.
A stationary country. I guess one that's not trying to go on conquest to expand its territory, I'm assuming is what he means. So a country is trying to simply exist. How can they encroach on another country? And aren't countries free to defend themselves? I think he's trying to refer to Ukraine trying to join NATO.
Good question. The Russians are, of course, just lying about the propaganda side of things, and they're saying that Ukraine tried to attack them, although it was the Russians that attacked the Ukrainians. So it is a little weird that the Russians act like they're in the wrong for that, and also in the wrong for trying to defend themselves and getting foreign support. So that is a good question. And it really just revolves around, well, it's lies from the Russians, so it doesn't really count much. But I would say that Ukraine should join NATO, because that would be in their benefit for sure. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well. And with that, it is the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much for watching tonight. It's been an absolutely incredible night in the news. It's been great news all around. I hope you all have all enjoyed as well. And I thank y'all so much for watching this far in. 3,500 of y'all are still here as we're rounding out the stream. And if any of y'all are new and have never watched this channel before, make sure to subscribe, because we run this channel 6 days a week. You can never miss us, because we run at the same time those 6 days at 10 p.m. Eastern time and cover the past 24 hours of the war every single day. The only day you'll never find us here on is on a Monday. But with that, thank you all once again for watching. Good night, take care, good luck, and I'll see you all tomorrow. And of course, Slava Ukraini!
Yeehaw! Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Усміхнеться доля, згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. браття у своїй сторонці. Душою тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу і тіло ми положим за нашу свободу.